When I'm happy, I feel gleeful when you touch me. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Side, wanna hide my face in your chest for the rest of my life. Mystery. All right, hello everyone, good morning. Really need Devin Doe. I'm annoying when I'm happy. Check out their music links in the chat. Trolling these strings, me. All right, let me set up some tech stuff and we'll jump right in. Stopping me. Enough, enough. It's getting harder to breathe. All right. I'm not as tough as you think. I'm just good at pretending. What a jam. What a jam. Except when I'm with you. You see right through. When it feels good, I feel crazy. Okay, abrupt pause coming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Big abrupt pause. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Okay, we're getting into it today. As you guys know, I often say on my channel that I'm not in the political bubble. This does not mean that I am not a voter. This does not mean that I do not pay taxes. This does not mean that I do not listen to NPR every morning. This does not mean that I don't follow the news. This does not mean that I am not politically involved in spirit / paying attention to when my civil rights are being threatened, okay? When people say, when Brittany says, I am not in the political bubble, what I mean to say is I'm not a person who's actively working in that bubble, and I am not trying to be a voice or a leader in that bubble. I am still a tax-paying American. I am still a minority. I'm still doing advocacy work in my own personal life, but I'm not doing advocacy work in a traditional sense. So I don't want to take credit for the hard work other people are doing in their communities by saying, oh yes, I'm politically involved, because that feels like stolen valor. But I also want to make it clear that I'm not staying ignorant either. I am paying attention. I am voting. I am in that niche bubble of American population that likes to pay attention to politics, right? I come from a very politically motivated family. I come from a family that raised us talking about politics at the dinner table. My parents are very active in the conservative bubble in that way. They are Trumpers. It is controversial right now and tensions are high. But you know, I want to make sure that when we cover these topics, we're coming from a place of like understanding. One of the reasons I left political activism in the traditional sense is because it wasn't fulfilling for me. It obviously wasn't a part of my calling. When we talk about people's calling, we're talking about where they're going to meet their joy, where they're going to find their meaning. My meaning wasn't in political activism. That doesn't mean that the fact that I exist and I'm openly queer and I state like my minority status proud and loud, that doesn't mean that me existing doesn't transfer over to basically being political, considering that conservatives love to say that queer people are simply being political by existing. So we know that simply existing is enough to be considered political in the world. So I just want to make it abundantly clear that we are here to find our place in the universe, to find our meaning for our life, to, you know, quench that meaning crisis thirst that we're all feeling. When I watch Hasan, which is not as often because I don't think he's progressive enough, as a minority person, as a person who's not playing a political game, Hasan isn't progressive enough for me. That doesn't mean that he isn't speaking to his calling and he hasn't found his place on the internet where he truly thrives. It doesn't mean that he's not doing exactly what he should be doing. It just means like, I don't want to do it. And who else, you know, can do it except Hasan, really? That's why he is who he is, because he is following his calling. Now, I don't know if he's joyful, but he's certainly where I think he's meant to be. But who knows, right? Same thing with Cenk, with everyone we're going to cover today. Like, at the end of the day, it's not where I want to be. It's not where you want to be, but it's where they're going to be. And whether or not we disagree with them are different. So let's move into this with compassion meaning to suffer with. Let's pay attention to the bubble differences, and let's recognize that taking credit for being active in politics is like unnecessary to then say that you are somehow political in your own life. I obviously pay attention to politics, but I'm not going to pretend like I'm trying to go to the DNC or that I'm gathering signatures or I'm out here. Like, I'm not out here doing these things. And so until you are, I kind of feel like realistically, you're political, but you're not like involved in politics. Like, you know what I'm saying? Some people out here trying to really get elected, you know what I mean? Like, that's involved in politics. Okay. So there's a controversy that's been happening within these bubbles in which Hasan interviewed AOC and Bernie Sanders, which I thought was a really smart political game in order to bridge the gap between Democrat liberal voters who love those two and more leftist oriented people on the internet. I thought that was a really good political move. Of course, some more left leaning people were disappointed in that decision, and they spoke with their full chest their disappointment in that decision, considering that AOC and Bernie Sanders have been way too lax on the genocide of Palestinians and their support of Israel, considering the fact that at the end of the day, even though Hasan, me, FD Signifier, Cat Black all voted for Harris, okay, we still had plenty of criticisms for the Harris campaign and the way that she stood by Israel's genocide of the Palestinians, right? Now, I do not personally fault Arab communities for not voting for her, but I do raise an eyebrow at people like Madeleine Pendleton and all these other people who refuse to vote for Harris because they don't want to play some political game. And at the same time, I do not blame people for wanting Hasan to stand up to Bernie Sanders or AOC. And at the same time, I can't blame Hasan for wanting to build that bridge either. So let's talk about it. Let's observe some content I have saved for you. I have pre-watched this just so I could prepare myself to talk about it with you. And remember that we're just watching people be people. And there's no right solution. There's simply all of us trying our best. And there's nothing wrong with people disagreeing and speaking their mind. At the end of the day, there is nothing wrong with people being critical of Harris while voting for her. There's nothing wrong with people being critical of Harris and voting within their own value system. There's nothing wrong with it. Any more so, well, depending on how you want to play the game, really, girls, let's be real. It depends on how you want to play the game, right? And I know some people do get triggered at this idea of playing a game. They don't think life should be a game. Call it what you will. I understand why the word game can be upsetting to people. I like it. I'm a very, like, if you play video games or if you play board games or if you play, like, it's just a strategy. We're just saying you should have a strategy to your life. There should be strategy when it comes to being serious about your life. And there's a lot of criticism to be had about the strategy put in place by all sides. And I just want to talk about it. Okay. I just want to talk about it. Okay. So this is a clip from Hasan. Okay, this is on one of the side channels. It said, did I defend AOC and Bernie Sanders? This is just a clip from his stream I want to show you. And then I want to show you a TikToker who was replying to one of the clips in this stream. Not this particular clip, but just in the stream for this day. So this is 3 minutes into the video. I want you to listen to Hasan. Listen to how he feels, humanize him, listen to where he feels like his position is, and listen to his goal. Hasan wants to be the biggest. He wants to get the most voices to listen to him. He wants to move the most people left. This is a very specific goal. So let's listen to him talk about it. And he's going to fight with people in his audience about the fact that he interviewed Bernie Sanders and AOC. So just so you have context, okay?
You're not doing advocacy. You're crying in a Twitch chat. You are crying in a Twitch chat. You are crying in a Twitch chat. You are not an activist. You're a loser. Okay? Seriously. And if this is your worldview, if your worldview revolves around like almost exclusively yelling at a Twitch streamer who you know is aligned with your worldview, that is interviewing politicians, or at least is like close to politicians that are also infinitely closer to your worldview. I'm not even talking about Bernie Sanders at this point. I'm talking about AOC specifically, who people yell about all the time, but like she literally called it a genocide way before anybody else did. If your expectation is like those guys are actually in the wrong, if those politicians are the worst politicians in US Congress, you're stupid.
Is the video still much lower than me right now? Because it says it's like the same volume on my OBS. Can you guys let me know if the volume is still much lower? Because I can also lower myself down.
You know? Well, to be honest.
And I just want to say, while you guys tell me how my microphone is doing, that realistically, Hold on, I want to get distracted by playing with my microphone. This is a common sentiment you'll hear from everybody. Everybody feels this way, not just Hasan. I was just listening to some people who remain unnamed. I will not name them. But I was listening to people basically talk about the work that, you know, conservatives need to do. Sorry, hold on. I'm getting distracted. Okay, hold on. I switched my mic up a little bit. Did I lower myself down? Did you hear me get significantly quieter? Did you notice that my mic changed? Thank you guys. This is the tech version of the show. Please like the stream while we're working out tech. Please like the stream. Please like the stream. I lowered down my mic. Let me know if it significantly changed when I press Hasan on again. I'll play with it until I figure it out. Everybody feels this way. I was just listening to a couple of streamers because I was trying to see like what they were up to. And they were basically talking shit on Hasan. And they were saying that, you know, he didn't vote for Kamala and he's never going to vote for her. And like, but he did vote for her on stream, right? Like, ultimately, you can have your views of Hasan, but I feel like they just don't understand him. So when they criticize him, it feels silly because they don't get it. They were saying that, you know, we should have a liberal party with no extremists. And if you're extremist, you have to get out. But then they don't want the purity politics of it all. But then they don't feel invited by the leftists and they feel like there's too much. Look, there's a difference between standing up for your values and playing a political game. The reason I left politics is because it's about winning, right? It's not about what's true. That's why politics is exhausting to me. Because you're not allowed to actually vote for the thing you want. Ultimately, you have to vote for the thing you're willing to compromise on in order to get the thing you want in like 30 years. So there's a whole part of the leftist movement that's like, we don't want to wait 30 years. We want it right now. And there's a lot of the Democrats that are saying you're going to have to wait 30 years to make it happen. And some of them are like, no. And then it's a conversation about who's right, the people who are willing to move slowly or the people who want it today. So morally, ethically, I obviously think the people who want it today are more ethical. But the people playing the political game, they need you to take it increments of what you want day in and day out, year and year, right? So that's the thing that is going to be the most confusing with this. Let me play with my microphone while you listen to Hasan. Oh, you know what I'll do? I'm so silly. I got it, girls. Watch out. Hasan might be super loud now. I think I figured out what was wrong. Get ready. Are you ready?
I'm not here all the time. Okay. What are you, a baby?
Much better, huh? Much better?
Are you a child? Are you a child
How's
person?
that?
Are you a person with a childish
How is that? Good, right?
brain? Okay. You don't know what I do in my free time? That's what I'm talking about. Do you have object permanence? Don't you think it's up to you to go and maybe perhaps see what my perspective is instead of assuming that there is a good faith criticism here? Why call me a loser? Because
I do think that a lot of people that criticize Hasan are haters on his stream. I do think a lot of people that criticize Hasan don't watch his content. And look, I'm not an avid Hasan fan like that, right? Like I watch him on occasion. I'm very trying to get out of that streamer bubble. But I'm telling you right now, I love when people criticize people when they actually get the person. I think what's so frustrating for me is when people criticize people and they don't even get it. Like you have to get it first and then you can criticize, because then that way it's exciting and there's a possibility of something being accomplished, right? And I think that this is good for views, like Hasan arguing with haters in his community. But I think ultimately it is probably just people who don't even watch him or care anyways. They're not getting it. And I noticed this on the comments about my Ethan Klein videos. Like people aren't getting it, just like Ethan can't get it. They can't get it until they get it, which is why you can't convince people overnight, hey, don't be racist. And they're like, oh, thanks. I guess it won't be racist. You can't just tell a racist person not to be racist. They're not going to get it. They have to get it over time, which is why the Democrats are saying you can't convince Trump voters or MAGA people to be progressive. You have to get them a little bit at a time, right? But I don't think it's wrong for people to demand that they get it today. I don't think it's wrong for people to say you shouldn't be racist starting right now. But also I accept that human psychology is slow moving and you might not get there. But I also think that's bullshit. But I also think that I have to accept that that's how humans are. But I also think it's bullshit.
you're behaving like a loser. Be like, go yell at Republicans instead. No, not even Republicans. There are hundreds of Democrats in positions of power that you could yell at. And this isn't to say that you should not criticize this isn't to say that you should not criticize AOC
Right.
at all, ever, that these politicians are infallible or whatever. That's not what I'm saying at all. I've never made that point. I have plenty of criticisms for AOC and Bernie Sanders and numerous other politicians that are aligned with me on some issues, but not aligned with me on others, or they don't go far enough in the way that I want to, in the way that I want them to.
For Chet asking, do I watch Hassan or mainly his clips? I don't watch Hassan streams. If I watch, like, right, well, it depends. Okay, this question is kind of weird because I'm a researcher. So I watch everybody and I watch nobody. So it's a weird question to ask. Are you asking me if I watch Hassan as a fan? No. Are you asking me if I watch Hassan as a researcher who needs to see what Hassan is saying? Yes. So if I see on the internet people are mad at Hassan, I go and watch enough of Hassan to see what his opinion is and why people are mad at him. But are you saying, do I watch Hassan every day, his 9-hour stream and nobody else? No, I don't watch Hassan's 9-hour stream. Are you asking me if it's like, you know what I mean? When people say, like, I don't know what people are asking me when they ask me, do you watch, I don't know what that means. You know, how long do I have to not watch somebody before I can say I don't watch them, right? I haven't watched Good Mythical Morning in like a week. Does that mean I don't watch them anymore? It's like, the question is, you know, it's a weird question, but I think what people are trying to get at is like, do you know what he's been saying? I know what he's been saying based off of what I've watched, which isn't all 9 hours of his stream every day, which is most of the people criticizing him also don't do that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I watch people's streams in the sense that I check in on CNN to see what they're saying. Does that make sense? Like, I don't watch CNN all day, but I check in and I see what they're saying. And then I watch for a little bit and then I click off. I do that for Hassan. I do that for Asmon. I like check into the big, most popular streams on Twitch. I check in, see what they're saying, and then I check out. Right?
But like the idea that the idea that like these are the only targets of ire is so incredibly stupid. And this also in and of itself is incredibly stupid, you know? Anyway, I got baited. I'll admit, I got baited by a stupid ass person. I'm gonna kick him out and just like delete my post. That's probably the most effective way to talk about. That's the most effective way to deal with this kind of shit, instead of just like taking it seriously and responding to it, because a lot of people don't actually want to learn anything. They don't want to genuinely have discourse. It's just more so just stirring shit up. But yes, why aren't you responding to my criticisms of you? I don't know, because they're invalid. Because
I also want to say that I think the difficulty of being a streamer is like, look, I've made so many mistakes as a streamer, so many things I'm not proud of. All of us have. And I think we have to acknowledge that. But it also feels like no matter how we explain ourselves, some people won't accept it. Like, some people just won't accept it. And I feel like Hassan gets that so much more than anybody else because he's the biggest streamer in the space that he's in, where no matter how much he explains himself, like, people will not accept it. And I understand that, listen, the people who will not accept it, I think he should ignore. The people that accept it, but also have criticisms of him, I think they're really valid. I think, you know, like I said, I have my own personal criticisms of Hassan, like I do with most men that I watch on the internet, to be fair. Like, I'm pretty critical of most men on the internet, but I think that that's different than understanding where Hassan is coming from and then being critical of him and then having a disagreement based off of like your own personal values versus like, I'm never going to hear him out. I'm never going to accept what he says. Like, that's the group of people that are the hardest. That's why it's so frustrating. And we're going to talk about this later with Cenk later and Francesca. It is so frustrating to me when I hear people, you know, in a political sense, try to meet MAGA people where they are because they think, especially the MAGA influencers, like they're going to change their mind. They are not interested in changing their mind. They're interested in debating you on the internet for views and clicks. So you have to really remember that. Like, at the end of the day, you can meet your parents, you can meet your friends, you can meet your colleagues where they're at as MAGA voters, but meeting MAGA influencers where they're at isn't going to get you anywhere because none of them are actually interested in changing their mind. Because at the end of the day, they want the views, they want the clicks, they want, you know, they want money. That's why so many people grift to the right. And so it just feels really strange to me that people aren't recognizing that as much. But I mean, there have been some video essayists who have been talking about it recently. Like, should we even be platforming these controversial characters, right?
Your criticisms of me are that I'm circumcised, and that's not up to me.
This is like a little small talky. He's talking to his stream. I give it a second. He'll get back into what I want you to focus on.
You're just reiterating the fact that I'm circumcised, and it's hurting my feelings. I wish I wasn't. Okay, they took that away from me, and you're out here reminding everybody that they stole something from me. You know what I mean? They chopped it up. They chopped my shit up. They took away my hoodie. It's out in the cold. You have to. You're Muslim. I don't care. Yeah, there are 8 House resolutions to block weapons to Israel. 14 members are on all 8. AOC, Greg Kazar, Garcia, Green, Jayapal, Johnson, Lee from Pennsylvania, Ilhan Omar, Pecan, Presley, Ramirez, Talib, Velasquez, and Watson Coleman. And hella dudes are only yelling at some of these people that are just in front of them. I'm sorry. If my point always is the same. If the rest of Congress resembled even Bernie Sanders' position, which is nowhere near as critical as like AOC and some of these other people's positions are, like Rashida Tlaib, obviously, that's not even my expectation. But like, even if the majority, the overwhelming,
I feel like sometimes people don't understand that politics is a very layered game. Remember, and I don't think people understand it when I say it, because I think they don't but my life completely shifted when I realized the amount of grifters on the right are so real. But it is a lot more people than you think in a way, but it's mostly centrist and right people. So centrists fall for the grift, I think, a lot harder in some ways, because they want to believe in the good in people, which I love for them. It's like, we just reviewed this last episode of Love is Blind. Go check it out on my channel. And the guy says, oh, I'm fiscally conservative and socially liberal. And I'm like, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. And the lesbians were like, red flag, red flag, red flag. Because yeah, it sounds good. Oh, that's such a good slogan. But what is it, girls? It's a red flag, okay? It is a dog whistle for I vote more Republican than Democrat. It is a dog whistle for, like, I think Republicans have any good fiscal policy, which they don't. Like, if you think Republicans have anything good about them policy-wise, like, we are not on the same page. We are not in the same reality. We are not having the same conversation. And this is just like the game of politics. So Democrats and, you know, leftists, the two different groups, but they are the future of my ideal future, where the people we're going to be talking about in terms of policy are those two people. I don't even want Republicans or policy from Republicans to even be in the normal everyday conversation about our lives. But right now we are there. Right now we're in a position where we have to contend with people that are currently, I mean, look at the way the administration is coming in full force with this bulldozer ways, destroying all of these institutions, all of the funding, everything with bird flu, everything that's happening with vaccines, everything that's happening. None of this is good. And I know why certain people like Cenk are freaking out and saying we have to play a game and we have to get these voters who are on the edge to vote more Democrat. We have to get these people to come out. We have to remember that politics is also a niche community thing. We are the tabletop of the rest of the normies. Politics, to be even interested in politics, is abnormal. That's why on Love is Blind this season, all the boys were like, I don't really pay attention to politics. I didn't really vote in the last election. And all the women were like, red flag. You're not voting? You're not participating? Wait, red flag. All the boys that didn't vote these last elections, all the people that just were like, I don't really do politics, they are the majority. Okay? And they are the people I think we should inspire to come out and vote, much more than the people who are already established. The people who are already Trumpers, I don't even care about them. Like, the audacity from these centrists to be like, we have to bring Trump voters over. We need to bring new voters in my opinion. We just need to get new people to be motivated to vote, to sign up to vote. We need to get people, inspired and educated enough to realize their vote matters, much more than trying to get MAGA people to vote Democrat. Like, what are we doing? Why are we even playing this game?
majority of Congress demonstrated Bernie Sanders' attitude about Israel, a big chunk of this violence would never be initiated. And Bernie Sanders is not the best on this either. Like, that's the other thing. Like that, we need to move beyond that as well, for sure. But in the interim, you have to work with what you have at your disposal, the tools you have at your disposal. Yeah, Bernie, this is the House resolutions. Bernie's in the Senate. Bernie has also pushed for a Senate resolution to block weapons to Israel.
Well, let's go, Bernie. Make it more apparent. Chad says, I try my best to understand, but I honestly think that it's everyone's responsibility to participate in our political systems. Part of this is being informed. I don't think it's everyone's responsibility. I think it would be great if everyone took on the responsibility, which is different. Listen, maybe it's my autistic PDA, you know what I'm saying? But the audacity to tell me that I'm an evolved animal on a planet and then to demand that I do anything is very annoying to my brain. Don't tell me what to do. But if you say that to be the most joyful self, to really have power in your life, the most responsible thing to do is vote or participate in political systems, then I think that's a great message. But if you say it's your responsibility and you have to do it, I swear to God, don't tell me what to do. Because I think human psychology is at play here. And a lot of us don't want to be told what to do. I certainly don't, right? Like, I don't want to be told what to do. So I just know for myself, who is a well-read, who is involved, who is very smart, I think so at least, even I get pissed off when people tell me it's your responsibility. Because I know I'm just an evolved animal. Nothing matters. Don't tell me. But if you want to, there's so much you can do for your communities. Just so you know, don't lose hope, because there's so much you can do. You don't have to lose hope. There's literally a solution for you. I promise you, being kind and compassionate and registering to vote and voting more liberal will make everyone's life better. I promise you that is true. Whether you believe it now or not, first, I have to get you to hope for the future, right? First, I need you to get there, right? Chad says, isn't it an important part of harm reduction? Well, harm reduction isn't objective. It's subjective to the circumstance. If you want to harm reduce and you think getting people to vote will be a part of harm reduction, then you have to understand that telling them that they're the reason, like, the world sucks is never going to work, right? Like, that's not really the answer. Now, if you share between us, like, we're, between you and me, right? Like, human beings, all of us are the world's a reflection of us. So we're all at fault. But if you're trying to build a strategy of understanding their psychology, then you have to understand that the best way to empower people is to give them hope and a hope for the future. And I think that's what conservatives did really well. Like, Trump gave Trump voters an idea of hope for the future, even if it doesn't feel that way, right? So I feel like first of all, I actually do believe in hope for the future, because I strongly believe we're animals formed on a planet, which means that I believe everything we do is a part of our nature. And so we're doing what we think is good. But I actually do believe in hope. I think that helps. Put a t-shirt and call me, put a t-shirt on me and call me Obama. But like, I do believe in hope, right? I do believe in people. I believe in humanity. I believe in our nature. I believe that we're so much greater than we think we are, but we also have to unlock that greatness. So we have to remind people that there's a future to look forward to, even if that looks like a future where we make some global sacrifices that in the long run won't feel like a sacrifice, like eating less meat or flying less or driving electric cars or whatever else. Right? So all of us are coming into our own existence with our own struggles. It's really hard to tell a 19-year-old that has no hope of ever being able to pay rent, like, get out there and vote, because they might not understand the point of it in a world where they've been taught throughout history that the government's been corrupt. Universally, a trait that conservatives and progressives share is a disdain for power. The difference is that they both vote for power in different ways. They both participate in upholding the power structures as they are in different ways. I do think ultimately conservatives not only uphold the power structures as they are, but allow them to have more and more power. I do think like Republican policy, the reason it's so bad is because it appeals to that part of us that's so human to say, like, fuck the elite, but also does a disservice to its people because it hides in the policy. It hides in the marketing. It hides in the bullet points of it all. And I think that it's up to the voter to be educated, of course, but it's also up to us to accept that they might not get there. the part of my work that's hard for people is that I'm trying to get you as an individual not to crumble under the weight of the world. And political people are trying to get you as the individual to become a collective to vote a policy forward or a political party ahead or a candidate ahead. And the reason that people can get upset with my work is that they don't understand, if I'm not in politics, why am I talking about it? Because I think politics is people. And I'm here to advocate for people. And I want people to advocate for themselves. And I know, as somebody who is allowing the weight of the political bubble to weigh on her, I was depressed, I was in therapy, I was suicidal. It wasn't until I realized that I needed to take care of me and mine, and that I needed to take care of me and mine through policy, that it became easier for me to digest that humans were going to be the way they were. If I allowed myself to go back to that place where I was being suffocated by the weight of other people's decisions, then I wouldn't get anything in my life done, because I wasn't getting anything done when I was there. For me personally, I was sinking under the weight of it, feeling like it's now or never. The truth is, it's not now or never, but we are certainly in a time that is very serious. And we are 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. We're in the 2 steps back era, which means a lot of people are going to suffer, and a lot of unnecessary suffering is about to start and has been continuing. It's already started. But we want to suffer wisely. And the dilemma is, I don't think very many people know how to suffer wisely. And this is a global issue. This isn't a right wing versus left wing. Most people do not know how to suffer wisely. And so if I could get even 10 of you to suffer a little bit more wisely, I really think that's kind of beneficial to everybody involved. There's nothing wrong with understanding politics as a game. There's nothing wrong with understanding your life as a game. There's nothing wrong with switching the game up to language that makes you feel better about your choices. But you're really just a person at the end of the day. Okay, you're just like this biological creature who's evolved over time. You're a victim to your genetics and environment. You only have so much power, and yet you have so much more than you think you do. So I'm not, again, we're here to review Hasan as a person, because that's what he is. Like everybody else. Everyone's just a person trying their best, and it's never going to be perfect. Chess says the voters can't be educated if education is defunded and they aren't giving or even allowed to have an education. Well, and keep in mind, a lot of these conservatives, my family members, purposely keep their kids away from information because they think it's brainwashing them. Right? So keep in mind that a lot of these conservatives that are now homeschooling their kids, not vaccinating their kids, they're also deliberately keeping them away from liberal media so they can't know better, because they don't want to know better. Listen, Hasan, he and Cenk, they're uncle and nephew. You're going to wait until you see this interview with Cenk later. It's crazy. Okay. They can't even get along. I can't get my parents to see it. We are struggling with getting our own family members to see us and humanize us in a particular way. They think we're wrong. The difference is, I guess Cenk is like a liberal and my parents are Trumpers, but you know what I mean? So we are asking too much of humanity. And yet we're not demanding enough of our own selves. In your personal life, which is different than in your public life, in your personal life, if you want to meet bad people where they're at, I commend you, because someone's got to do the work. In your public life, meeting bad people where they're at, I don't know. I tried it. Didn't work out for me. Personally, I did try it. It didn't work out. You all saw how it didn't work out, right? So I'm being much more strict about meeting bad people where they are publicly. Privately, we need more compassion privately. Publicly, I don't know. I'm not convinced that's the way to do it. I'm not convinced that being more compassionate to bad people is the answer publicly, but I would say publicly, it's really good to be compassionate to people that are willing to see you. When I hear people talk about Hasan, like when I go to the liberal centristy bubbles that talk about Hasan, they hate him. They misconstrue his ideas. They try to ruin his reputation. They say things about him like he can't be here. He's the bad person. We don't want him in our group. Well, then we have nothing to talk about. Because at the end of the day, publicly, if you're coming for Hasan, we have nothing to talk about. And that's what people like Cenk are doing. They're coming for their own nephews. Like Hasan isn't extreme enough for you to kick him out of the liberal leftist movement. I'm sorry. He's just not. And so that's a part of the problem too, right? But humans are going to human. It is what it is. Okay, let's go back to Hasan and then we'll move over to the next part of my stream.
Ironically enough. Which Green that they're referring to? I think Al Green. But instead, you're in here yelling at a Twitch streamer who is a fairly prominent anti-Zionist, okay, who gets attacked all the time for his anti-Zionist positions, because of his collaboration with congresspersons who themselves are not anti-Zionist, obviously.
I think obviously, but not so obviously in a way, maybe, I'm hoping. P.S. Cenk is going to say something very similar in his interview with Francesca. He's going to say, I am doing what's right and you guys are attacking me. Everybody feels this way. Everyone feels like, hey, I'm doing the thing that's hard and you're attacking me. But the truth is, no one's ever going to do it perfect for everybody. And I think that's kind of okay. I think we have to accept that that's true. That no matter how much I think I'm doing the absolute right thing, there are so many people who do not like my work. And I think that's fair. I just still am going to do it because I think I'm right. And when I'm wrong, I'll call myself out. Right? But a lot of us feel this way. A lot of us feel like we're doing the right thing. Right?
That's not the case, but are infinitely closer to your position, to your worldview than like 99.9% of Congress. It's stupid. That's it. You go out and build the tools and I'll work with you too. You know what I mean? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you understand? Like this is a tool. These are our public servants. Okay. They're supposed to represent our interests.
That's true. We should hold politicians more accountable. We should build bridges with them, but also we have to understand they're playing a political game as well. And that's also important, but you have the right to speak out against them. I think people have the right to be critical of any political person, and you have the right to play a game in which you build bridges with them, and you have the right to differ on this opinion.
And in that process, I am not shy about explaining to you that like I grade Congress on a curve, and in that situation, I have to look at like what the rest of Congress's attitude is on this.
Okay, again, chat saying Hassan doesn't even vote. I do not know why you guys keep pushing this misinformation, but if you are so convinced that it's better to stay ignorant, you can stay in my chat and, pay me that way if you want. But I feel like it's so frustrating because, again, it's not about whether people are vote or not, but Hassan votes. Again, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be a perfect voter to have an opinion. Okay, people who can't even register to vote can have opinions. People who aren't even citizens of this country, America, get to have opinions. Everybody gets to have an opinion because that's how it works, right? But like he obviously voted. He said he voted. He did it on stream. I don't know why you're being so weird. And then that tells me you're trying to stay ignorant on purpose, right? Okay, chat, and you keep bringing this up too. And I know you keep doing it because I know your username. You have got to get your shit in order. Stop saying that Hassan is denying the rapes in Israel. Like, stop saying that. He never denied rapes happened. I have debunked this 1,000 times. And I swear you guys keep this going because you are convinced you're right. Nobody is denying the rapes happened. We were denying the initial story that it was used as a political move by Palestinians or by Hamas to I don't even know, take ownership. I don't even know what the argument was. I mean, I do know what the argument was, but you know what? I'm trying to say that it was a silly argument. There was no political movement where they were like, okay, and to make this a part of our political move, we're going to rape people. People raped. That doesn't mean it was used as a political move, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the only thing we're saying didn't happen. Maybe it's a little autistic of us to be literal. Maybe that's our problem. But you have to understand now, Zionists are using that rhetoric to convince you to genocide and kill Palestinians. As long as you keep saying that Hamas politically used rapes as a means of, winning some political war with Israel, Israel is going to use that as a reason to convince you to kill Palestinians. That's why it's so dangerous to keep parroting this talking point. Because now people are saying they raped our women. They did it on purpose. They mass raped our women. Now we get to kill theirs. So if you want to continue the genocide of Palestinians, keep pushing that narrative. Okay? Chet says he literally said there's no proof on stream a few days ago, but okay. You're not listening to him. You are deliberately not paying attention. Hassan has said the same thing for months. Has anything changed? Somebody really let me know. Because every time I hear him talk about this, he has never denied that rapes occurred. He has said that rapes used as a political move, as a part of the attack, never happened, which even Gabor Mate said. A lot of people said, like, again, I'm not sure why we're still arguing this
issue. And these people are infinitely closer to you. These people are infinitely closer to you in their viewpoints They're infinitely closer to you in comparison to the rest of Congress. The expectation is to move the rest of Congress to this trajectory and then move them further to the left. Anyway, how do you have the conversation with these people without losing your shit? Very impressive. I have maintained a community I've maintained a fairly large community of incredibly active and incredibly vocal leftists for the past 10 years, and especially on Twitch for the last, since 2018, for the last 7 years. So that's what it is. And I still lose my shit. It's impossible not to, right? It's freaking impossible not to. Anyway, this is just like, remember the tenet. Be normal. Be normal.
Okay, listen to this part. Be normal. This is what Hasan and his pretty privilege allows him to do this more than anybody. He wants to be normal. He wants to appeal to large Democrat voters, again, to move them more, quote, left in the long run, or to centrist, maybe vote for Trump, maybe not vote Trump, men, maybe. He wants to appear normal, which he does in some ways, ironically enough, because of his aesthetic, because of the way that he literally looks. It allows him to more easily move into normie bubbles because normie people will see him and nothing will stand out to them. He doesn't have the blue hair, piercings, tattoos. In an obvious way, I don't know if Hasan has tattoos, but I've never really thought of him as a tattoo person, which tells me that even aesthetically, that I never think of him as that person, right? He wears high fashion. He wears expensive clothing. He lives in a nice place. He lives in LA. Like, he has all of the tenets of being somebody that people can understand and categorize without feeling weird about being around them. But, you know, that's why he's playing that game fairly well versus some other political streamers that, like, they're never going to be seen as normal. When they show up to an event, you can just tell there's something about them that's like, I don't know about this, you know? So again, I think that he does have a greater chance of appealing to normie bubbles, but so does, you know, Cenk, though I kind of feel like it's a little bit different, where I think like he might struggle to get younger people to see him or respect him. And I'll get into that with Francesca in a moment because she went off. What a queen. I just got introduced to Francesca's work, so maybe I don't know enough about her, but I love her so far. Fingers crossed. I hope she's great. But we'll get into that in a moment. So again, I think Hasan isn't bad for wanting to be more normal because AOC is so scrutinized. Think about people who degrade AOC's eyes. She's got crazy eyes. They say they don't like the way she is. They can't trust her. Like, she's not normal enough for normies. And I think that's because she isn't stereotypically attractive. I think that's what it is. I think it's because she doesn't appeal to that Eurocentric perspective. Do you know what I mean? But like Hasan does. He might be, you know what I mean? But he might be from the Caucasus Mountains, but he's got a really good aesthetic. It's very the Turkish, what's that guy's name? What's the Superman? What's that guy's name? Oh my God. I can't believe Henry Cavill. He's got the very, like, he's the Turkish Henry Cavill. Okay. That's going to appeal to a lot of people. Let me tell you, girl. Okay. Cause we're just animals on a planet, girl. You know what I mean?
I'm sure you can if you cultivate a different attitude. I mean, I have. That's why this community is the size that it is. And the broad majority of people in this community, are pretty forgiving. And
I also think it's really fucking stupid anytime I hear other political streamers talk shit on Hasan for not being normal enough when they're getting 2,000 views, like a video or a stream, and Hasan is literally getting 30,000 stream, like concurrent viewers. Can you explain to me why any of you think you're doing better than Hasan when he literally is bringing the most attention to these issues? Like, that's what I do not understand about people that are like, Hasan he's at the DNC. Okay. He did not get kicked out of the DNC. He's at the DNC. He's talking to AOC and Bernie Sanders. He is there. He's at protests. He's getting people involved. He's got the highest retention of audience. What is your problem? What is your problem fucking with Hasan? Okay. Again, I have a lot of criticisms of Hasan. Totally different though than the criticisms coming from these centrists. The centrist criticism of him, bullshit. The progressive criticism of him, some validity.
pretty empathetic and are guided by empathy first and foremost, and care about instilling class consciousness and developing solidarity with others. But then there's always going to be loud, brash, and oftentimes narcissistic people that may not even be doing like wrecker behavior, may not demonstrate wrecker behavior ideologically, but instead are doing it because they just want to be heard. You know, they want that sweet dopamine rush, that dopamine hit of streamer noticed me, streamer responded to me, I got something out of him. In any case, none of this matters, which is what's so funny about it. Like, people will be like, what is happening with my eyes? I can't see. I'm like losing my vision right now. What the hell? What do you say to someone who say compromising on morals and beliefs with Bernie and AOC is going to end up compromising with the Dems in the past? I'm not saying I think that, but it's a valid reason why people are reluctant to support Bernie. Okay, don't support him then. It's fine. I think he's going to be fine without I think he's going to be fine without the support of a bunch of like leftist TikTokers or whatever, or their communities. He's got fucking 34,000 people showing up to rallies. I'm sorry. He's got the motion. He's got the motion. He's got the momentum. That is the truth. All right, let's start with Luigi Mangione.
Okay, that's the end of the clip I wanted to show you. Discord said people who say Hasan isn't normal enough. Meanwhile, most of these people are orbiting sex pests with abusive communities that just melt into themselves. Literally true. And look, Hasan and I both made the mistake of ever friending Debate Bro, right? We both made that mistake in different parts of our life. Big regrets. I think both of us wish we never interacted with that person, because that person is like herpes. You can't get rid of him, okay? He just follows you for the rest of your life because people are just so toxic in that community. But I think the point is that we can move on from it. Everyone can move on from their past, hopefully, fingers crossed, you know, and that person like is never going to be able to contend with Hasan's presence. And there's a reason for that. And it's good. It's good that that person isn't building traction in these communities, because that person is literally a danger to communities, a danger to women, a danger to men, a danger to everybody, because, you know, they're bisexual. So they're an opportunity to all the genders, really, you know, maybe even the non-binaries, right? So we have to be careful of dealing with sexual predators in our communities. We have to be careful about who we collab with, though it's difficult to always do enough research. Right? It is difficult to do enough research to figure out, like, is this person safe? Is this person not safe? I am always concerned, like, when people reach out for a collaboration, if I'm going to have the same issue I had with Debate Bro. Like, is this just another person who has traction and they're asking for a collab, or I'm asking them for a collab, and then I haven't done my research, and then all of a sudden I'm in one of the most toxic bubbles I didn't realize was going to happen in that way. You know what I mean? So with that said, this was a clip from Hasanabi Archive. So it's just like one of those side channels, but I'll link it in the chat. You guys can check them out if you want. The focus I want to go to next is actually exactly those TikTokers he just mentioned. So there is a TikToker that is having an issue with Hasan named Vex Loser. I think that's that's them. And maybe you've seen him on TikTok before. Let me bring up his TikTok so we can watch it together. His volume might be too low or too high. I'm not sure which, but let's see his perspective on criticizing Hasan. Shout out to Happy World Autism Awareness Day. We love that. And also Trans Awareness Day was the other day. Happy trans, happy autism, happy everybody. June's coming up, girls. They might be trying to make it illegal to celebrate Pride, but we got to celebrate Pride, okay? Let's go ahead and watch this.
By leftist TikTokers and Redditors to say you were letting AOC and Bernie off easy regarding Palestine. That TikTokers are Fed. They ramped up anti-Hasan posting after the giant Detroit rally. Who's the Fed? I don't even know which TikToker you guys are talking about. He looks like a fucking cop. This guy's a fucking Fed, really? What did he say?
If you're using your platform to funnel support towards the Democratic Party rather than telling them to join their own socialist party, you're a bad socialist.
Here's the thing, okay? If this motherfucker was an elected representative that's able to bring 32,000 people, 34,000 people to come listen to him talk about how healthcare is a human right, you know, I'd be glazing him too, all right? And until you have political motion like that and broad acceptance like that, you ain't shit. I'm sorry. You're just going to fucking sit in your car and chirp, and that's it. And if that's the overall output, you know, you're not going to get anywhere. I'm trying to do something, okay? You can be more pure than me.
Interviewing those genociders really got you feeling yourself, huh? Talking about I'm not doing nothing but chirping my car. You're trying to...
Okay, so he's going to go on really hard. But I just want to point out that I'm sure Hassan is getting some form of validation, because we all do, from the idea that Bernie and AOC let him interview them. I think ultimately that is going to give him some sort of human validation. But let's see if this person has some valid criticisms of Hassan, since they're not a conservative, right?
To do something, you're a streamer, a glorified fundraiser, a living billboard. Come correct. The reason why your fans are so quick to call me a Fed while you give gifts to them is because they've never seen a principled socialist in their life. You should do better by them, and I'm going to teach you how.
By the way, like, AOC, I think, gets more heat, surprisingly enough. Well, not so surprisingly, but, like, she literally is more pro-Palestine than Bernie is, okay? Ocasio-Cortez defends accusing Israel of genocide and forced speech. And Bernie Sanders' position, he's advocated in the Senate, you can say it's just symbolic, but he has straightforwardly advocated for a denial of weapons transfers, right, to Israel. Now, we can go over the language of that, where he'll say, like, offensive weapons, but not defensive weapons, blah, 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 okay? That is currently, as it stands, minutia. Why? Because every other fucking congressperson, with the exception of like 17 senators that signed off on that bill, are literally going, what are you, insane? We're going to deny Israel $7 trillion worth of weapons?
What I love about this part of the video is you contradict yourself twice. The first, in recognizing that their actions are completely symbolic, but still deciding to use these things as examples. AOC calling it a genocide in a speech, words, contradicts her actions, like voting to condemn Hamas, and equating the denial of Israel's right to exist with anti-Semitism. She also just recently supported that bogus anti-Semitism resolution, which further criminalized the Free Palestine movement. Bernie Sanders voting against sending offensive weapons, keywords you want to call semantics, does not stop his constant advocacy for the occupation, nor does it set any precedent against the regime. So both oppose Palestinian resistance, both support the Israeli occupation. So what is even the point in power scaling who's more pro-Palestinian, whatever that means? Especially because the second time you contradict yourself during your ramblings is admitting that they are a drop in the bucket. Arguing that these two and a handful of others are the only thing that's standing in the state's way of supplying offensive weapons to Israel rather than defensive weapons, like that makes a difference to the unwavering support of the occupation, is idiotic. Democrats were giving billions to Israel for the Iron Dome when they were in power. What are they supposed to do now? What can they do now? Are they supposed to be rallying the other Zionist politicians? Because that's what you're arguing, and then some.
If we were...
What do we think about that? I don't think he's wrong. I think it's right to say that AOC and Bernie have had a track record of defending Israel when Israel's been in the wrong. I don't think that's wrong to say. I think personally, I agree with this. Politically, if you're playing a politics game, you want AOC and Bernie on your side. So if you're playing the politics game, I think Hassan is right. If you're playing the ethics game, I think Vex Loser is correct. And the question is, which one are you going to adhere to when it comes down to voting and being in politics? And this is why I left the political bubble, because I didn't want to play these games. I can't play the game Hassan is playing. It exhausts me. It's not my calling, because I would rather be able to say that I don't appreciate the way that these politicians have been supporting the genocide of Palestinians. Like, regardless of how you want to play the political game, if you defend Israel, if you believe in Israel's right to exist at the expense of Palestinians, like, it's unethical. Right. So I understand why Hassan is frustrated or feels attacked by these communities. But I think Vex Loser is making a better point that ethically it is wrong to kind of support these things. So, again, you have to decide what you're doing. Now, again, I don't identify as a socialist or a capitalist. I don't identify with systems. Because, again, I don't think people are systems. I think systems are created out of constructs of our doing. Right. So I think even identifying with a system is like a huge eye roll for me. But that's why I don't, but I can see both people's perspectives depending on the bubble they're in and how they're playing the game. The thing is like, they're not coming from the same perspective. They want different things. Even if they want the same thing, they want different things at different paces. This is the irony of how I see it. And we'll go into this when we watch Francesca versus Cenk. Cenk is trying to do the same thing where he's trying to meet MAGA people where they're at. Hassan's trying to meet Bernie where he's at. And Vex is saying, fuck both of you. And I'm kind of like, I agree with Vex in that sense, like, fuck both of you. But also I agree with Hassan in a sense where I'm like, hey, you got to build that bridge, bro. Somebody has to build the bridge. But also I'm not going to do it. But also I'm glad that somebody's doing it. Right. But also, because I'm kind of like, but also I believe we should radically accept that people are moving at the pace they can. So,
To be able to get AOC and Bernie Sanders to actively rail against, with all the broad public momentum that they have, actively rail against the current administration's anti-Palestinian action.
So, push Bernie Sanders left. Push AOC left. Hold the Democrats accountable. Your plan to build socialism in the United States is to ask the Democrats who oppose it nicely. And you talking about you're trying to do something. You don't know how to build socialism.
Hold on. Chat says, Morley, I know what's right, but we have to play the game if we want to win before the game gets thrown out the window. We already one leg out the window. We don't have to do anything. On my channel, I really want you to understand, you don't have to do anything. No one will remember you. All of us will die. And in 100 years, everyone who's alive right now won't be here. You don't have to do anything. But if you would like to do something, you must accept that you are the only person making a decision to do something. That's saying everybody else should want to do what you're doing is the mistake everybody is on. If you want to play a game, go play that game. But to say everybody must play that game is making the mistake everybody always makes in politics. It's the same mistake everybody feels. Don't tell me what to do. I'm telling you right now, don't tell me what to do. Don't give people ultimatums, but give yourself boundaries. Don't tell your MAGA parents what to do, but make a boundary where you don't talk to them anymore. Don't tell MAGA people what to do, but put a boundary where you're like, I'm not socializing with you. I'm not working with you. I'm not doing this with people. Meet people where they're at. Maybe you got somebody in town who's a MAGA voter, but they're incredibly charitable and kind, and they help you at the food kitchen or soup kitchen, whatever. Help them, right? But like, we can't bully people into being correct. We can't shame people or guilt people, right? And I want people to understand that if you're going to play the political game, which is what Hassan's doing, you have to build bridges. If you want to play a political game that's about always being on the side of what's absolutely correct instead of what is slowly correct, then you might be somebody like Vex. It seems like Vex is in that position, right? I agree. Chat says, honestly, we need all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. I 100% agree with that. We need all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. But there is no perfect way to show up in the world because there is no perfect world to show up to.
Outside of voting for progressive capitalist candidates, and that's because you're a pretender. You're not outside for real.
That's why people being like, dude, you don't understand. Like, these guys are genocidal monsters. Like, their entire job is to funnel you back into the Democratic Party. Like, first of all, my job is not that, okay? If there is a Democratic Party worth funneling into, I'll be its most loyal soldier. You'll know. The signs will be there, okay? I want to be regime pilled. I want to be its most loyal servant. I want to be the propaganda minister. Give me something to do propaganda for.
That sounds like a self-aware reactionary to me. Not no socialist. And ending the video with, leftists are so mean with their purity politics. This is kind of the only socialist space where you can still make a mistake. Please get over yourself. That is such a cop-out when someone's pointing out you're not walking it like you talk it. And very telling to my point, whether you want to call it purity politics or not, there's a difference between a leftist who brings up healthcare when we're talking socialism and a socialist who brings up people's labor being exploited. There's a difference between a leftist talking about the oligarchy and a socialist talking about the ruling class. And don't just do Fed work for free. Put a name on it. What socialist organization do you know that's not educating its members up out of capitalist indoctrination as well as the community it's a part of? And that's where y'all leftists will go silent because your movement only exists online. And the hostility you're referring to is socialists spanking arrogant leftists like yourself who don't care to educate themselves on the issue beyond virtue signaling.
There's hella organizers in here that would look at this and go, you're behaving in a wrecker. You're doing wrecker behavior. This is not like instilling solidarity at all.
Leftists love to act like they have a movement worth infiltrating. You actually have to be part of a movement for me to be a wrecker. And that's why it's good to just go by the book sometimes, because you don't even realize you're a mark. A sucker being used by the establishment to delay the inevitable. To sap all radical potential and effort from working class people. Simply wanting things to be better does not make us the same politically when there is a very clear difference between a Bernie bro socialist who wants reform and an actual socialist who wants revolution.
I think that's true. I think they're completely different categories. Bernie socialist is different than what Vex, I guess, is representing, which I think is important to pay attention to. So Vex, within his bubble, has every reason to criticize Hassan. And I think that's within his right. And I think that's so valid, right? I think if you're a Bernie bro socialist, like the, Bernie bros that like Joe Rogan used to be, right? Then you're different, right? But that's why those people have gone more centrist or conservative, because it's the same reason. Like, look, the more I learn about veganism as a philosophy, it's becoming so clear to me why it must be strange to have people say, oh, I'm vegan, and then to go back from being vegan. Because now I'm getting it. I'm like, oh, and I'm not a vegan, because calling myself would be a vegan would be like calling myself a socialist when I'm not, right? Because it means something. They signal to certain communities. Like, I'm not a socialist. I'm not a capitalist. I don't identify with systems. I might be plant-based, but I'm not a vegan, because these things mean different things. And if I'm paying attention to which community I'm signaling to, I think I do want to pay attention to what they mean when they say it, so I can communicate with them more clearly instead of fighting them about like who can be vegan. I think in some ways you would want everyone to identify as vegan even if they're not a vegan. But in some ways, I could see why they want a purity of what it means to be a vegan. I totally get it. The dilemma is like humans work the way they work. So when you as a person decide what to do with your life and how to function, you can pick and choose the game you play, but it is going to be different. It's going to look different. Okay, it's going to look different. It's going to feel different when we have these conversations. That's why I say no one's the same. No one can be the same. Do you remember Kat Black fighting with Madeline Pendleton? And look, Madeline Pendleton's people really come to my chat. They're really angry and they think they understand my work, and you don't. You don't understand me. You don't understand my positions. You don't understand my jokes. You don't understand my humor. You don't understand anything about me. But I appreciate the energy, girls. Keep fighting the fight. Kat Black had a whole thing with Madeline Pendleton because they voted a third party, basically. And Kat was saying, you can't do that. Like, this shit matters. You should have voted Harris. And it became like a whole, like, oh, Kat is a centrist or what's this insult they call them, right? What's that insult they call people? The blue, like a blue, I forget what it's called. Like, basically that Kat is working for the Democrats, when that's obviously not true. But it's like, when it comes down to it, some of us are more involved in communities that are political, but we split. And so we make different decisions based off those games. But again, I feel like it's totally normal and natural and human to have these disagreements, right? And because the left isn't a cult, unlike conservatism, Blue MAGA. Yeah, Blue MAGA. That's what they were calling Kat, Blue MAGA. And I was like, what are you doing, bro? But I think because the left isn't actually a cult like MAGA is, it actually does have nuance and uniqueness to it, right? Bad Empanada is one version. Hassan is another, right? Like, we're not monolithic. We're so unique and different. FD Signifier is different than, we're all different. Right. But in conservatism, they're running a cult. They're running like a church, a religion. So they're just like, yes, come in. Oh, you hate the immigrants? Guess what? We have something about that. Ooh, you think people should come here legally? Ooh, like, come on in. Like, let's talk to. They're recruiters. They're here to evangelize. The left isn't interested in that. So like, we are unique and diverse. We're not monolithic. We're so specific with our goals that, of course, we're going to have some disagreements, maybe some infighting, if you will. But that's because we're actually thinking. I think I want to give credit to everybody on the left for actually thinking. That's why we argue with each other, because we're thinking. Conservatives don't have to argue. No one's thinking. Everyone's just following. So, I don't lose hope when I see people fight. I see a potentiality for us having larger and better conversations about these topics, right? And I understand the frustration. Now, this was Vex, so I'm going to go ahead and link Vex's TikTok. You can check him out if you want to see more of his work. I assume he's a he, him, but if his pronouns are different, let me know. This person next up, replying to Vex and Hassan at the same time, is called Marie. Marie? Yeah, I think that's the name of their name. So here they are.
Fucker was an elected representative that's able to bring 32,000.
It's low right now.
34,000 people to
It's just
come
Hassan
talk
talking.
about how healthcare is a human
Hold on.
right, you know, I'd be glazing him too. All right. And until you have political motion like that and broad acceptance,
Hold on.
like
It's
that,
coming. The stitch.
you ain't shit. I'm sorry. You're just gonna fucking sit in your car and chirp, and that's it.
Vex and I do not agree on anything when it comes to electoral politics, but we
Her volume is a tad low, so just keep that in mind.
can both agree that Hassan Piker is a fucking hypocrite for how he's platforming Bernie Sanders and AOC post-election. That's the thing about being a hypocrite, right? If you fuck over both sides are going to come back at you. So if you want Vex's perspective as a staunchly anti-electoral, anti-democratic party socialist, go watch his video. And if you want my perspective as a pro-electoral leftist Democrat, stick around. Hassan says that all he needs to glaze or support a politician and not
Did I change her volume a little bit? Did it help at all?
press them on the issue of Palestine is a 34,000 people rally and saying that universal health care is a right. Well, Kamala Harris at just one of her rallies had over 75,000 people. And at a Univision town hall during her campaign, which was broadcast to millions of people internationally, she said this.
I firmly and deeply believe that access to health care is a right and should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it or have access to it easily. It should be something that we make accessible to all people. Again, it gets back to my earlier point. It's about the dignity of people and about the importance of doing what we can as leaders to alleviate suffering.
Seems a bit hypocritical, right? But let's hear more about what Hassan has to say about defending AOC and Bernie Sanders.
My point is, these are not perfect vessels. And your expectation in a fucking bourgeois capitalist country's duopoly that like one party member is going to be a perfect vehicle for a revolutionary sentiment is idiotic.
I just want to say, I know the volume's really low, guys. These TikTokers don't understand that their volume doesn't translate to YouTube videos. I just want to say, I think everybody is actually right. And I'm not trying to both sides this. I'm trying to literally point out the fact that depending on your belief system and your values, they're all technically right. Hassan is right. We're in one of the most powerful nation, the most privileged nation. It's dealing with racism and homophobia and transphobia. We're dealing with the most hostile administration to come in, to deal, we are facing so many problems that the best he can ever do to make moves is to collab with Bernie and AOC. I also believe that it makes a lot of sense for people to be unsatisfied with this collaboration because it is frustrating to deal with people, Bernie, who, though he has tried time and time again to challenge the system, has still in many ways had to be a part of it along the way with many others to even have a place, to have a voice. Because the dirty thing about politics is everybody sacrificing a part of their character and their values to stay there. Never get it twisted that if you want to be in politics, a part of a thing that you would wish to uphold can't be upheld when you're playing a game like this. And that's why it's so dirty. That's why it's dirty. That's why I won't do it. But I understand why other people have to or do, because maybe if good people did, things would change. But man, it's like becoming a billionaire. How are you going to become an ethical billionaire under capitalism? And how are you going to become the president of the United States under capitalism? How are you going to become any form of leader in a world that is run on corruption? It makes me question you. So maybe had Bernie won the presidential nomination, which I caucused for Bernie, right? Had Bernie won, who would have said that Bernie wouldn't himself had to sell out some part of his moral compass in order to make things happen? Because anytime you're playing games with Republicans, anytime you're trying to meet Republicans where they're at, that's what you're doing. Any person who has to meet Republicans halfway has to sell part of their soul. But is it wrong for Hassan to meet liberals halfway? Maybe, if they're Gavin Newsom. But maybe not so much if they're AOC or Bernie. But maybe. Because Bernie's the one who's trying to meet people. You know what I'm saying? I get it. I understand why people are upset.
Use the opportunities you have. What the fuck? These things not only take time, and I know the Palestinians don't have time, but unfortunately, in terms of working within the confines of the American political movement, these things do take time and initiative.
And I know Chad is saying if Bernie, maybe Hassan could have pushed back more. And I know some people online were saying that Bernie and AOC only took that interview knowing Hassan wouldn't push back more. And this happens to all of us. Sometimes the only way to get an interview with somebody is to not push back on them. And sometimes it's not worth taking the interview, and sometimes it is.
And effort.
I agree with Hassan on this sentiment, but it's utter fucking bullshit coming from him at this moment. Like, why the fuck didn't you have this energy when it came to rallying around Kamala Harris during an active presidential election when it fucking mattered? You're going to pull out this line of
Wait, I gotta
reasoning?
rewind that.
Why
What?
the fuck didn't you have this energy when it came to rallying around Kamala Harris during an active presidential election?
What? I felt like he did fine. I don't know. Maybe. What? I don't know. Yeah, he didn't play. That's interesting. They didn't like the way. Okay. I've heard this criticism of Hassan before, which is so fascinating to me that he went too hard on Harris. I think that's interesting. I didn't care that he was critical of Harris because I had the same criticisms. But I guess I felt like he was doing enough as a streamer, but maybe I have a lower threshold for what I consider enough. But I also think here's my actual theory about political streamers. I think all of them are looking for validation in a way that some of them are very disingenuously there. Like, I know for a fact that some of those people that do a lot of work aren't there because of their values. They're there because they want the credit of being bigger and better. And they're actually competing with Hassan. Like, they're actually just trying to beat Hassan at everything he does. And that's the only reason they do political anything. And I want you to really realize this, that I don't know why Hassan is there. I don't know why he cares about politics. I don't know him that way. But I know for some of the people that feel like, oh, they're so involved, they're only involved because they're secretly competing with Hassan. And that should tell you something.
When it fucking mattered. You're going to pull out this line of reasoning post-election to defend an 83-year-old politician who is not running for office again during a non-election year.
What the fuck?
Like, this is actually the time to be pressing politicians on the issues you give a shit about so that they can change their campaign for the next election if they're running.
What the fuck?
If you really believe in electoral politics, if you really gave a damn about this shit, about protecting people, about making progress in America, you wouldn't have gone so hard against Kamala Harris's campaign.
Yeah, I disagree with this take. I disagree that Hassan went too hard on Harris. I fundamentally disagree with this statement. And anyone who has it makes me raise an eyebrow at them. What are you saying? He voted for her. He said vote blue. What more do you fucking want? He has the right to be critical of Harris. She had a lot to criticize. Like, we have a lot to criticize about her. So confused. Let's see. Chat says, if I recall correctly, didn't he want Harris to do more so that she could actually win? His problem with her was that she didn't really address a huge issue like the genocide against Palestine. Exactly. I thought he was upset with her because she wasn't talking about Palestine. So I disagree with this person. I disagree. I think Marie is her name, and she's replying to Vex. And apparently Vex and her don't agree on a lot of things, but they do agree on Hassan being a hypocrite. I disagree on this assessment. I think this is a poor assessment of what Hassan was doing. And I've heard this from centrists in the debate bro bubble. At the debate bro bubble, I've heard this from centrists in that bubble, where they're like, Hassan ruined any chance of Harris winning. It's Hassan's fault. Harris didn't win. I don't get it. Is Hassan so powerful that he moves the vote that much? Or is Hassan nobody and just a streamer and so he doesn't matter? Make a decision. It's like they want to blame Hassan for Harris losing, and then they want to blame Hassan for not doing enough. Make it make sense, kids. Which one is it?
Also, the way that Hassan keeps bringing it back to this 10-minute interview with Bernie and AOC that was just so short. He's not going to press them on Palestine. He has other things to talk about. He had a 30-minute interview with Bernie Sanders on his stream, and he didn't ask one question about Gaza. You can still go.
This feels very much like Ethan saying that Hassan didn't impress the Luffy kid enough. Not Houthi kid, Luffy kid. That he didn't impress him enough. That Hassan isn't critical enough against. Hassan isn't critical enough against a lot of people, but then is critical sometimes. Just like everyone gets this criticism. Everyone gets this criticism. I'll tell you this. One time I had one of the I made a video on one of somebody associated with Andrew Tate. And that person reached out to me and said, hey, I saw your video on me. I'd love to do a collaboration. I said, sure, I'd love to do a collaboration. We had a FaceTime phone call. And they said, you know, I really think you were empathetic towards me. I'd love to have a convo, but you can't mention Andrew Tate. Like, you can't come for my friends. And I said, oh, sure. And he never called me back. I had a feeling he knew that I maybe was still going to question him, because I was like, you know, but I was like, oh, sure, maybe, like, you know. Anyways, we tried to talk it out. He and I never ended up doing the collaboration, but the requirement of the collaboration was that I couldn't mention any criticism of his associations. And I was like, you know, like, and all this to say, everyone's playing a game. The question is, what game are they playing? And when do people, sometimes the way to get the interview is not to call them out, but sometimes it's not worth getting the interview. Hasan made a decision that said it was worth getting the interview than not getting the interview. Right? And I think that's fair, but I don't think it's the game everybody wants to play. But remember that Hasan doesn't play the game you're playing. That's why you guys are not doing the same thing. Hasan is not doing the same thing I'm doing. He's not doing the same thing you're doing. No one's doing the same thing. Hasan wants to be big. He wants to be more normalized. He wants to be more popular, which means he's not going to play it the same way you're going to play it. Right? It is what it is.
Watch it on his YouTube. And in fact, Hasan praises aspects of Biden's policy on there.
Where would you rank Biden's performance across the board? Because there were certainly a lot of good things that occurred. I think pulling out of Afghanistan was a success, and it was the appropriate thing to do, even though it was not defended adequately by the Democratic administration, in my opinion. And the media definitely was very gung-ho about continuously punishing Biden. There were also initiatives, like you said, the expansion of child tax credit, and wonderful work done by the NLR.
Chad says, why would he press Bernie if he knew what he was going to say about Gaza? To appease his audience. It would have been to appease his audience, because streamers at some point become like almost like politicians. So the only reason Hasan would question Bernie, even though he knows Bernie's answer, is to make the audience feel satisfied with the interview between the two. That's why he would have done it.
NLRB and many other regulatory agencies, like the FTC specifically.
Biden's not running for re-election. Bernie's not running for re-election. I thought it was punish the Dems. I thought they were horrible, terrible people. I thought they were genocidal baby killers that were irredeemable. But now it's, oh, you know what? Let's give some points to Joe Biden. Okay.
What the fuck?
Like,
I mean, they could be both. Not to be such a nuanced queen, but you could be both. I'm all about giving flowers where flowers are deserved and calling you out for your bullshit too, because that's what humans are. Humans are both. All of us are both. We're all horrible people who are the greatest people. And that's the problem with humanity, is that we're not like these black and white things most of the time. So yeah, you're both. It's just what it is, you know?
one chatter had to say this.
I think people call you a hypocrite on this because you move like a politician. I move like a politician.
I think it's so funny. Like, yes, Hasan and all Bernie bros move like politicians because they move like Bernie. They try to do this insider outsider bullshit that is completely ineffective and just pisses everyone off. They adopt anti-electoral socialist rhetoric specifically to weaponize at Democratic presidential candidates that are not Bernie. They hold them to these ridiculous moral purity tests to derail their campaigns, to punish the Dems for not letting Bernie win in 2016, just so at the end of all of it, they can come in and be like, Bernie is the answer to all of our prayers. Why won't the Democratic Party listen to us? Why are you doing this? It doesn't work anymore. It can't work anymore. Bernie is 83 years old. He's not running for office again, or so he says.
So basically, it's why appeal to Bernie if Bernie's out. Why even be nice to him? Why even try to save face with him? Maybe it's a strategic move to be nice to Bernie in order to be nice to the people who supported him.
You guys have invested the past 10 years into one fucking politician who is on his way out. A terrible, stupid fucking plan. And people are going to call you out on it. And people are going to see the inconsistencies, going to see the hypocrisy because
What the fuck?
If this motherfucker
Yeah, I do disagree with the premise of that video, but I mean, everyone has a right to speak their mind. Chet says, Brittany, do you think AOC will run for the president next election? What are your thoughts on it? I can't imagine that AOC would run in 2028. It feels like it's not her time. It feels like the world's not even close to ready, but I could see her voting it like very far into the future, her running, and people maybe voting for her. I couldn't imagine her winning in 2028, though. That feels very off to me. I don't know. I couldn't imagine. I know everyone loves Michelle Obama. I love Michelle Obama, but I don't think Michelle would win. I don't think, I think like, you know, have you heard that whole like, oh, Trump's going to run again, so we need Obama to run again? Like, sure, maybe that would be fun and maybe Obama would win. But I think ultimately, like, we are truly in a shift. We are truly in a changing moment in history. Like, this is a very significant moment in US history and global history. And it, you know, it's going to be something that we are going to be picking up the pieces of for the next 50 to 100 years. And this is just it. We are living history as everybody ever was who has ever existed. And we will see what happens. But it didn't happen without everyone's participation. I mean, simply existing is a form of participation, right? It's participating and bringing any sort of energy or change into the universe by simply existing. And this is, you know, again, we talked about Chaperone yesterday on the stream, and people are getting mad that she's saying like being a parent seems exhausting, when at the same time we're yelling at the government that we can't pay our bills or afford groceries. Like, of course you're exhausted, but then you keep having kids. So we're obviously not on the same page about harm reduction. Stop. You know, you can like not have kids. You know, most people don't have to have kids the way they be having them. But if you want to keep having kids, girls, you do you, right? But like the economy is not going to get better anytime soon. Like, where's the line between being responsible and doing everything you can in your own power to like hold some sort of control in your life, right? Like, of course it's hard being a parent in this economy. It's hard not being a parent. I'm not even a parent. It is difficult. It is very hard to make it in this economy. You never, like, I don't know why people are sitting here and pretending like it's not a big deal that you're even bringing a baby into the universe whatsoever. Like, we all pick and choose our battles. We can't be surprised that some people feel away because some people feel like they're judging the battle you picked. Judge the battle Hassan picked, but don't be surprised when he judges you back. I think we need to stop pretending that people don't, like, they aren't judging us. We're all judging each other for different reasons, right? Here's the TikTok by Marie. You guys can go check out her TikTok in case that is something you're interested in doing. This next part is the part that's it's a pretty long clip, but I'll go ahead at 1 point times 1.25 it. This is, so Francesca, do you see her? This is Francesca. This is 3 months ago. This is dated, but I want to show you Cenk's psychology, the reason he's doing what he's doing, and why Hassan might sound like Cenk does to leftists, why Hassan might sound that way to anarchists or socialists, right? But I will say that this is an interesting video. I pre-watched the whole thing. I think it's really interesting. She used to work in relationship to TYT, and I think at the time of filming this, she actually technically was still working with him, but she's out now. She just put out a video recently saying she's out. She's not working with him. She's too left for him. And so let's watch this because I think it's a good conversation, right? Okay, let's see. Here's... Okay, I'm going to turn down the volume because I think it might blow out your speakers.
Everything I do should reflect beautifully on everyone who works at TYT.
see this
Oh, hold on. Let me rewind it. I don't know why. Let me rewind it a little bit before that.
that we're thinking of them, us. And so if they're in the them, then we hate everything about them, right?
Volume okay?
And what I'm saying is, no, we don't have to hate everything about them. All we have to say is, so I don't agree with Bobby Kennedy on vaccines. So let's go, let's fight him and show that he's wrong, right?
Sure.
So there's nothing wrong with that.
That's all right. I'm willing to give you that. As we wrap, I do want to ask, do you think about how what you're doing reflects on TYT as a whole or on individual hosts at all? I personally feel implicated by a strategy by a strategy that I do disagree with? And or do you think, well, I'm doing the right thing, so everything I do should reflect beautifully on everyone who works at TYT?
See, this is a way of getting me like saying, Cenk, you're out of bounds. So you're implicating
I'm
me
not
in a
trying- I'm
strategy
not-
I don't agree with. Well, but what am I supposed to do? Not do the strategy I believe in because it might implicate people on the network?
I think I'm
You
asking for
said, like,
empathy.
not get
I'm
out
just
for
asking
that
for
now?
empathy, Cenk. It's just being a little empathetic.
Is it Jank or Chink? I never know how to say his name. I always feel so bad when I mispronounce people's names. Jank? Jank, like with a J. Jank?
No, I don't think that's about empathy. I think what you guys are asking for, and this is why I'm not on the far left, is you're saying, since we don't agree with your strategy and your strategy implicates us, you really, if you were empathetic and a good person, you wouldn't do your strategy. And I don't agree. I think my strategy is way better and will protect all of us much better. And so I'm not going to purposely do the wrong strategy because it implicates people on the far left. If you say, hey, I'm so implicated, I'm going to leave. This is unconscionable to me, as some did. Great. I got no problems with it. Everybody makes their own choices, but I'm not pushing anybody out. You get this. Everybody gets to stay. Everybody gets to have their own opinion. They get to have it passionately. They get to fight me on it. They get to fight everyone on it. They get to make their case. I can't do any better than being super open-minded and allowing everybody to make their case. If you say, Cenk, you shouldn't make your case because some of us feel implicated by it, well, that's your problem, not my problem.
Yeah,
Okay?
I mean, about that, I'm reminded of the book by I think his name is Michael Schneider on tyranny, and he wrote it's like 20 lessons from the 20th century about authoritarianism and fascism. And one of the things that has come to mind when you say
Chet says, what is his strategy that she feels implicated in? He'll mention it. So this whole segment, they'll go through it. They're going to talk about it, what she has problems with, why he's making the decisions he's making with. But basically, he and Anna have made the decision to talk more to Glenn Beck, right wingers, with Patrick Bet-David, to basically meet MAGA where they're at. But people who, in my opinion, won't even change their mind. There's no way in hell these MAGA influencers are ever going to change their mind. And so he's the guy who's like, oh, if conservatives hear me talk, I can convince them. Like I said, we shouldn't be trying to convince conservatives to vote liberal. We should be getting non-voters to register to vote and become Democrats or liberals or progressives. You know, that's what we should be doing. I don't know why we're trying to convince, because again, listen to me when I say this. I know people who claim to be liberal, which I think they're not MAGA people, but they voted for Trump to stick it to the Democrats, right? Bad strategy. In my opinion, unethical strategy, right? And they were shocked to hear that after everything Trump has done, my parents still haven't become anti-Trump. But I'm thinking to them, did you think that was going to happen? Did you think the core group of MAGA people who voted for him give a flying fuck over what he does? You think you're going to vote for Trump, he's going to destroy America, and Trump voters are going to be like, oh, I understand now. Trump is horrible. These voters want his policy. Not all of them, and I feel bad for the people who ignorantly voted for him to some capacity, very limited, but it's there. But the people like my parents who would never in their life vote Harris, never vote Biden, yeah, they're never going to change their mind. Like, they're never going to do that. And so I don't know what you thought was going to happen. My parents have 3 queer kids, and that wasn't enough for them to become pro-gay marriage. I don't know what you thought was going to change in these conservative minds when they literally disown their trans kids, when they literally, like, they're praying in front of abortion clinics. Do you know what would have to happen to make them change their mind? Much more than Trump destroying this fucking country. With peace and love. Like, you do not understand MAGA voters. You might understand Trump voters, but you don't understand MAGA voters. MAGA is different than Trump. People who voted for Trump, you're not the same people that are diehard MAGA people. You know what I'm saying?
My strategy will protect us. Is he has this chapter, I'm going to bring it up, the first part of it called Do Not Obey in Advance. And he writes, most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given. In times like these, individuals think ahead about what a more repressive government will want and then offer themselves without being asked. A citizen who adapts in this way is teaching power what it can do. In other words, you don't have to do the sort of crackdown on the left around speech because I'm going to do it for you. Or you don't have to
But
come
I'm not
to me.
cracking down. Again, you're misstating it. I'm doing the exact opposite. You're cracking down by saying, Cenk, you're out of bounds. So you should stop with your stupid opinion.
So
and
do
because
you
you're
ex-
implicating me.
I feel
mean,
like
come
there's
on,
a
let's be
real
honest, that's what you're saying.
Cenk, I feel like there's a real misunderstanding of power in your mind. And I think, I don't know
I
why.
think you're hiding behind this power dynamic.
No. I'm being totally honest. I am a contributor to TYT I go on every time you guys ask. I step in a pinch often. Sometimes I don't.
You do.
I've been asked less and less as of late. Jordan has sort of eclipsed me. It's fine. I don't give a shit. But like I am but a mere contributor. I make very little money from this show. I'm really grateful to the people who support it. Again, you have founded the TYT. You've been the head of TYT. You're one of like a stalwart in broader progressive left of center media discussions. Like what you do is far more impactful than what I do. I'm just being honest with you. Like you have a huge footprint. You have
it's a good thing I have the right strategy.
And when you go on shows, and you go on stages again with Charlie Kirk, it looks like an apology tour. You implicate not just everyone who's worked with you and everyone who is ostensibly on your side, but it basically makes it seem like it cheapens everything that we've done and we've built. That's why I can't sleep at night. That's why I feel sick when I see you on these shows. Like I'm just being. I mean, I guess I'm nuts. I guess I'm totally crazy, and I should just trust you and say, yes, we need our. You're doing the right thing. You're protecting us.
No, you don't have to say
all
that.
I am doing is I'm filled with absolute despondency, like truly. And I can't believe that a guy who I used to admire and who I thought had a lot of fight is trying to scratch the back of people who absolutely would never do the same for them.
So obviously I agree with her. She really killed this conversation. I don't know much about her yet. I'm just subscribed to her, Francesca, but I really love the way she handles this conversation with Cenk. I think it's really, really good. Chat says, does Trump not equal MAGA? I get there can be conservatives that aren't Trumpers, but Trump is MAGA. I'm talking about more like the center-C liberals who voted for Trump, because not all conservatives are conservatives, but there are liberals who voted for Trump. There are centrists, in quotation marks, kids who voted for Trump. And they are the people that aren't MAGA. They're not going to buy a MAGA hat. They're just going to go to the ballot and not tell anyone they voted for Trump because they want lower taxes or whatever bullshit they believe in, right? There are going to be liberals out. That's why I say be wary of the centrist who even says with their chest, conservatives have some good policy, because they will vote Trump and say that they're pro-gay marriage. They will vote Trump, right? And say they believe trans people deserve rights, So
we just spent an hour and a half of me explaining how I'm not scratching their back. I'm trying to get
but I can show you more clips,
to agree
man.
with us on things we believe in, and we've always believed it. And you go back to scratching their back.
At least
Chad says, did she quit or was she fired? So she was a contracted worker for TYT, and I believe they did not renew her contract, if I understand the story correctly.
Things will run on time.
No.
This video is 3 months ago. To be fair, this is Cenk 3 months ago. But keep in mind that we're looking at his psychology, his thinking, what he was thinking 3 months ago, and where we are now.
End on this because this is monumentally important. So I say everybody's allowed to have their opinion. You say when I have my opinion, I'm hurting other people. But that's. Do you hold on?
You're hurting a broader movement. Yeah.
Hold on. Do you not get that privileges your position? And says my position is obviously the correct one and the moral one. And since you have the incorrect immoral one, you are implicating me in your immorality and your wrongness. So you really shouldn't do that, because that's being immoral to me and other people who agree with me. Because since you're so obviously wrong and immoral about this, you're implicating me in your immorality.
With great power comes great responsibility. That's what I'm saying.
It is definitely the correct position.
I'm saying with great power comes great responsibility. I'm giving you.
So accepting, but you've gone off the reservation and you've gone rogue, Cenk. So now it is your fault for implicating the beloved far left, who are clearly have the correct position, but you don't have the correct position. And you don't represent the left. So please stop pretending you represent the left when the voting and the polling clearly showed you don't. And it's not wrong to be center left. You think that it's center left is no, it's, I don't know what you think it is, MAGA or whatever. But you want to talk about the power
I said it's Bill Maher and Nancy Pelosi having a baby, Cenk. I think ultimately you just need to embrace your centrism, my guy. I think you're just more of a centrist than you think.
Cenk is centrist. He is basically a centrist to me, but Bill Maher was a really good example. She's so smart, because Bill Maher was one of those guys growing up that I was like, oh my God, religiousness. What was his documentary called? This man's taking down the right. This man's taking down religion. This man's amazing. And then Bill Maher became the most loser centrist I've ever seen in my life. Such a loser centrist, right? And like, that's where Cenk is going. And that's what kills a lot of us who are like, no, not TYT. Because TYT was one of the largest platforms for liberal or more leftist media. And it's like, please don't do this to me, bro. But he's doing it. That's why I say the centrist, that's a huge red flag, right? What did Malcolm say? Be wary the white liberal. Be wary the white liberal, bitch. Okay, like this is the dilemma. Because with peace and love, human to human, neighbor to neighbor, I love you, I'm compassionate towards you. Political to political, you know what I'm saying? Like privately, what I would never harm any of my neighbors, right? My neighbors are all dignified human beings who I love. I want only good things for them. I want them to be housed and clothed and get medical care. I love person to person. I love everybody. But political to political, advocacy to advocacy, public statements to public statements. I don't know about this one, bro. Cenk is failing the hope we had for him as the adult in the room to make better decisions. And instead, he's put, in my opinion, maybe this is too much of, let me not use that word. He is bottoming out. He is bottoming for these MAGA people he's trying to meet halfway. They're never going to meet him halfway. They love having him on their shows so they can make fun of him. They are not interested in being his friend. Now, let me tell you, you know who else went on Patrick Bet-David? Oh my God, Sam, guys, help me. I'm having like a literal brain. Oh my God. Help, guys. Oh my God. Why does my brain do this? I swear to God, it's long COVID. I swear to God, I have long COVID. I hate my brain. Oh my God. What's his name? Glasses, Jewish, that everyone was like, what's his name? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm crying right now. I'm literally crying right now. Sam Cedar, thank you. Jesus, fuck. Sam Cedar went on Patrick Bet-David and did a very good job. Love Sam Cedar, love the way he talks, has some flaws, I'm not a big deal, but I love that he was able to go on those shows and not bottom out, right? Like, I appreciate that. Okay, love Sam Cedar, right? Chat says, I love your brain, BB. Thank you. Oh my God. My brain just like, it's crazy, bro. I really think it's long COVID. But I do appreciate the way he handles himself. Cenk feels like, I'm so sorry. I know it's not professional. Excuse my French. He feels like a bitch boy. He feels very much like a bitch boy, and they're like making fun of him and he thinks he's in on the joke. That's what it feels like. And then when Sam Cedar goes in, it feels more like he's an adult in the room and he's topping them. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Again, Sam Cedar's not perfect. We all have criticisms, but I do get that's the difference that I feel when I watch them. Is like, okay, I feel like Sam's more of an adult, but not like perfectly an adult. But Cenk just does not feel like he's in on the joke, and it feels like people are bullying him, and we'll get into that. It's going to show a clip. You know what I mean? I got thoughts.
I just explained it, but you don't want to hear it. I said it earlier, Franny. I'm not talking about the disgusting centrism of Manchin and all of that the mainstream media lied to us and called centrism. That's radical.
What's wrong with Manchin? Manchin works with both sides. He's a perfect example of what you're doing.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Manchin is the establishment. The fact that you can't see the difference between a left-wing populist who despises the establishment,
who's a right-wing populist,
who loves and is the establishment,
who's a right-wing populist,
you can't see that difference is stunning.
Who's a right-wing populist? Who is a right-wing populist? Name him. Who's a right-wing populist?
On Patrick Bet-David show is definitely a right-wing populist. Dan Holloway on Drinking Bros is definitely a right-wing populist.
Vinny on PBD thinks that the Biden administration blew up the bridge in Baltimore.
Crazy.
That's right. Because they're not saints, and they don't agree with us.
Who's a right-wing populist in office? Who's a right-wing? Is it Matt Gaetz? Who's your right-wing populist in office? Is it Marjorie Greene?
The new right-wing populist is absolutely clear. And see, guys, before I say the name, I know what's going to happen after I say the name. You're going to think of all the bad things he said about social issues, and you're going to think, oh my God, Cenk likes this guy. That's why I now hate Cenk. So I'm telling you, ahead of me telling you the name, no, I do not agree with him on the social and cultural issues, and I will fight him as hard as I possibly can on those. And I don't think that he's right on all the economic issues at all, but he has begun to be populist because he stopped taking corporate PAC money. Josh Hawley in the Senate. That is now a right-wing populist. Tom Massey, a right-wing populist. Okay, those guys, Massey, you could say 1,000 terrible things about him. but he is honest. Everybody knows he's honest. He's honest to a fault, right? When he says some things, I'm like, whoa, that's freaking crazy, right? But are they actual right-wing populists? Yes, they are. And the number one way you could tell if someone's going to be a populist is if they stop taking corporate PAC money.
Okay,
or if
I
they
accept
never
that.
took it.
I accept that. I just want to say, lastly, I worry about our relationship because I mean, I don't have to, like, we may grow
Yeah, their relationship didn't last. Their friendship, their working relationship.
distant, you know what I mean? I'm trying to delve more into my show. I still love going on John's show and Dr. Richie's show. That's in the TYT network. This show is on the podcast network of TYT. There's no money that really exchanges hands. You guys do help me with the podcast hosting, so I appreciate that. So I may owe y'all money. Do you know what I'm saying? But I'm just being honest. Like,
You don't know anybody.
but you know what I mean. I'm being honest about what our arrangement is. But I worry because, we were but 5 minutes into this conversation and you said Emma Vigeland likes the establishment and it doesn't matter what she said. It doesn't. Hang on. It's not about what she said, but it is concerning that there are so many former TYT employees, and let's put Doran Rubin aside, but people like Ben Dixon and Emma Vigeland and even longtime contributors who were editors like Hank. I remember Hank and like the fact that, he helped start the TYT union and now has obviously
nothing.
Okay, but I knew Hank was such a great guy, and Emma and Ben are such. I'm just saying. I'm telling you, these are. But okay, how I'm afraid, man. Like I'm next. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do. That I'm booted out of the castle.
She was booted. It happened. 3 months later, it happened.
And suddenly it's us versus them. And so what does it say about TYT? What does it say about you? That there's so many former employees who are on our side ostensibly, who you have so much disdain for.
So, Franny, if you're next and I have this secret nefarious plan to push people out, why am I on here? Why would I come on here?
No. That's the problem. Cenk doesn't think he's rejecting people. He thinks he's doing the right thing. The road to hell is paved in good intentions. But because he thinks he's doing the right thing and he won't listen to younger people are forced to put him in a position to have to burn the bridge with them. But it's the mistake of not listening to younger people because you think you know better because you're old. And younger people need to listen to older people sometimes. But I do think that she's more right on this than he is. And I think he's stagnant. TYT feels dusty to me. They just have dusty ass energy. They're dusty. Anna's dusty. He's dusty. They need to clean off, polish their shit, join us on TikTok, get with the groove, learn some slang. Like, it feels like they're dusty and old and they think it's still 2001. And it's not. We're not living Al Gore v. Bush, girls. We're in a different era of politics. And it feels like they're not keeping up.
And talk to you for now nearly 2 hours. When if I'm planning to push you, that doesn't make any sense. So number two, some people have left the network, and don't exclude Doran Rubin, because Doran Rubin and some others they went right, but some others went left or far left or whatever. But some group of them have the same agenda. Come watch me, come subscribe to me, not the Young Turks. I'm the morally pure one. I'm the right one. I'm the one that's right, and they're all evil.
People say this, centrists say this all the time, that the left is too judgy and there's too much criticism. Sure. But also, like, we don't have time to play around, kids. Okay. Chad says, can I just ask, mind you, I do hate Republicans and Trump. However, isn't education reform a good thing? Because regardless, it wasn't working that well anyways. When Democrats say education reform, they mean more unraveling of misinformation in academia. They mean setting things straight. When Republicans say education reform, they mean denying actual education from children because they think everything is a political agenda. When Republicans say they want education reform, they're saying they want to take gay people out of history. They want to take away black people from history. Like, even the Trump administration has taken off government websites giving you information on AIDS, trans health, trans even representation. He's taken off website dedicated to like pilots in the past that were black or advocacy groups. Like, when Republicans talk about education reform, they're talking about making education worse, not making it better. It needs to be reformed, but not through Republican policy. Nothing good about Republican policy. Not one thing good about Republican policy. They might have better branding, but that's just because this country is overall still very stuck in its old ways. There is nothing good about Republican policy. There's nothing good about Republicans' version of education reform. They want to erase you from history. Okay, Trump is defunding or wants to defund museums for being too racist against white people. He's saying museums, which by the way are inherently kind of racist because they're out here stealing artifacts from indigenous people. But I will say that regardless, if a museum is sharing indigenous history, Trump is saying they should be defunded because they're white. They're like taking away white representation. They're too racist. Nothing good about Republican education, nothing good about Republican policy, nothing good about Republicans. And I don't mean people who are Republican. Your humanity is valid. I'm saying people who are politically, specifically about Republican policy. Nothing good about Republican policy. Plenty good about people who happen to be Republican. Nothing good about Republican policy.
And terrible, and don't give them money, give me money, right? So let's keep it real. So is that everybody? Absolutely not. Okay, so a good example is Mondale Robinson. I like Mondale, and he has the similar ideological problem as you do, and he decided one day, that's it, I'm quitting, right?
Yeah.
And so, but bless his heart, that's what God made doors for. Okay, so and now he's attacking me and saying I'm in league with racists and stuff like that. Okay, that's his opinion, right? But when people cross a line like Ruben and Dorr and Sam Cedar, etc., and others, and they say, "Oh,
why did he just lump all of those people in together?"
Jake's just has this evil plan, and he's doing it for money, and he's a grifter, and he works with.
I don't think Cenk is a grifter. He's worse. He's worse. He believes what he's saying. What's worse than a grifter? Somebody who believes what they're saying and it's completely fucking ignorant. You know?
The CIA, or he works with this guy or that guy. Well, okay, now you're lying, and you're lying in like extreme ways. So like this whole thing of like Sam, for example, analogized me to a Nazi, but he's done 1,000 things. That's just one of them. And then when I go, hey, hold on. When I say cut that crap out, and they're like, oh, we're the victims. I'm like, I just said you were a grifter, and that you're lying to people, and you're cheating people, and I said you might be a Nazi, and you're definitely a right winger. But I'm the innocent one. I can't believe Cenk counterattacked after I punched him in the face 20 times. I can't believe a poor little angel.
But he believes in saving Social Security and cutting the Pentagon. So can you give him credit for that and work with him?
Oh yeah, of course. So I mean, if Sam's going to vote to save the Social Security and not cut Social Security, I'm not the guy who says I don't want his vote, right? I just don't have to go on his stupid show and agree with his stupid ideas.
Okay, but you just again stupid. Again, these are words that you reserve.
Okay,
Why do you?
Randy, if I called you a Nazi and I said you're a right winger and you're secretly taking money from Pelosi and Charlie Kirk,
okay, look, I feel like it's weird to be offended that Cenk called you stupid, but like also. He can feel offended being called a Nazi, and I think from person to person it's offensive, but that's what I'm saying. Person to person, you can have your feelings hurt. But politics to politics, this is about policy. And ultimately, as long as he is shaking hands with Nazis, you're kind of a Nazi, right? Like as long as you're shaking hands with them, like what are we talking about? And they can keep pretending they're not doing that, but at the end of the day, like if your friend is a Nazi and you're not, like you got a person, try to make your Nazi, try to show compassion to your Nazi friend. You are a public figure though. You don't get to be a person when you're a public figure. That's the downside of being a public figure. You're not a person. Now you are an advocate in some capacity. That's what Chappell Roan's not understanding either. Like at the end of the day, like congratulations, you are no longer a person. The greatest way to objectify yourself, become a public person. And it's our job as people to show compassion. It's our job as people to know how we're judging people. I think Cenk believes what he's saying, and I feel bad that his feelings are hurt, but I don't feel bad enough to change the stance that we have, which is like, they're not good. Like, this isn't good. What you're doing isn't good overall. And yeah, we're not going to get along. He should go hang out with Debate Bro and all those people. I'm sure he'd find more friends there, which apparently he did. They have collaborations together, right? So he mentioned it in this stream. So like, yeah, go hang out with them. But like, I'm not going to associate with those people, right? Like not now that we know everything. Maybe if you're ignorant, but not now. Now it's like no friends. No, we're not going to make friends. Like we're willing to make friends, which goes into the Hasan conversation. Is Cenk being kind to MAGA voters the same way Hasan is being nice to Bernie and AOC? I would say that they're different. I would say being kind and meeting Bernie and AOC where they're at is different than trying to meet Patrick Bet Davis David where he's at, or trying to meet all these like debate bro where he's at, right? Trying to make good with those people is bad. Trying to make good with Bernie and AOC, less bad. I do think it's less bad.
Then, hey, and you said, hey, and you got angry with me. Wouldn't that be a rational reaction?
I think there's been a conflation
with reaction be, oh, I love Cenk. I love that he called me a Nazi. I can't wait to work with him. No, he's a freaking grifter. That's all he's ever done. He literally told me that he was trying to take Jimmy Dore's audience because Jimmy's was bigger.
Good.
So he wanted to.
You remember what Jimmy Dore did to me? You remember the reason Jimmy Dore is out the door was in part what he did to me, and you and I talked about that at the time. It was when he had to finally face the fucking music and be
That's
like,
right.
"Hey, you cannot bully another not employee but a contributor."
Franny? I stood up for you, right?
You did. It had to get bad, but you did. He had also been, I mean, he had been going the way of the dodo for a long time. But I just want to say, like, so it doesn't say anything about TYT that there are these former employees who really, and I just want to back to the last thing I'm going to say is, people really liked you. They really did. And they looked up to you. And
oh, good point. Chad says I'm seeing dots, not connecting them, but seeing them. There's something going on in his head that's similar to whatever is going on with Rowling and Kanye and this knee-jerk double down. I think Rowling, absolutely. Like, there's some, I get it. I know what it is. It's the same thing I saw in okay, Trigonometry, it's a YouTube channel here online. They're very conservative, grifter. They're very like anti-trans. And he went on their show. And I was like, see, never trust anybody who goes on that show. Kidology went on that show. And what did they use Kidology to do? To make fun of the left, to talk about critical race theory. They used a black woman, a lesbian woman to create talking points and dog whistles to hate the left. And Kidology fell for it and participated in it. And I hate that. I hate that she participated in Trigonometry's bullshit. I hate that Cenk went on that show and participated in their fucking anti-trans bullshit. And even though he argued in favor of trans people, I fucking hate it. Because it's so obvious they're using you. They are using you. You are not their friend. They are not interested in seeing where you're at. They are not going to change their mind. They are using you to push their narratives. And the fact that Cenk doesn't get that is what's so frustrating to everybody else. Like, with peace and love, my bro, meet Trump voters where they're at, not crazy influencers that are never going to change their mind. They are using you. You are nothing but a way to pay their bills. You are never going to make them change their mind.
And they thought of you as a comrade, a boss, a co-conspirator in this grand, political project to really change this country, to make it more democratic. It really is. I have to say, like, there's a thin line between love and hate. And even these channels that are hell bent on being like, Cenk's this, Cenk's that, you know what? They were all massive Cenk fans. I think we all are a little bit. And so I just want to say, like, it is sad to us to see you honestly act like very small when in fact you could be a lot bigger.
So Franny, I think
it's true. He's being a bottom bitch. He's being a bottom boy. He is. He's bottoming to these people and he's playing into their games.
You're being unbelievably unfair. So you're taking six.
But he doesn't see it. And that's why we can't just convince people. We have to give them time to see it. My hope is that he sees it one day. But you can't force him to see it, even though everybody in his life is like, hey, dude. And not everybody, to be fair. Anna, remember when we covered Anna Kasparian and I told you guys it was trauma that made her go more conservative, and it was. She was assaulted and she didn't get the vindication or validation she needed from the left. And so she went more right. That makes sense. That's what humans do. We're psychological little biological creatures. And I told you, I called it. I was like, this is going to be about trauma. She's not a grifter. She's traumatized. Cenk isn't a grifter. He's naive. He's naive. And it gets even worse. Like, you guys wait. It gets worse.
These people, four of whom are like clearly doing it for money, okay? And clearly doing it for attention. And
I'm not taking anyone. I'm asking you a question.
You accuse me of incredibly unfair things. Can you allow me to respond? Franny, you know the people inside TYT, they work here 15 years, 17 years, 20 years, 17 years, and they love working at TYT. And what these assholes are doing is pretending that we're...
Chet says their convo says unproductive. Was this live or a private that leaked? Nope, this is a live stream. This is a normal live stream. This is the conversation that is happening in public. Who knows the conversations they were having in private?
bad bosses and we're bad to our employees and we're bad to everyone that works at TYT and we do all these things and we push them out. Bullshit. Every one of those people left and they said, oh, I'm going to be bigger and better than you. And then they viciously attacked not just me, but everyone that works at TYT. Why do you think Edwin and Bart and all those guys have been there for so long? We gave people 12 weeks of paid family leave when no one else was doing it. And we did it for moms, we did it for dads. I can go on and on. Franny, to make it seem like I'm pushing people out and that I'm the bad guy here, when in fact, you know for a fact that 98% of the people that work at TYT love TYT and try to stay there forever and ever and ever. Sometimes they'll go to a different company and go, whoa, holy shit, that's bad, and come back to TYT. So please be fair and honest with your audience, because working at TYT has been amazing for those people. And all we're getting is smeared by a couple of people who literally say, we want to tear down the network. We got 75 people here that we have to provide for. And they're trying to take food off their table because me. I'm going to tear down the left-wing network. Why don't you spend your time, those people that I'm talking about, tearing down the right wing, tearing down Trump, tearing down all these people, instead of sitting there and going, oh, someone on the left is bigger than me. I'm going to tear them down. And that's what they're doing.
I think it's a really sore subject, but I did just want to ask, I think yesterday on the Mark Lamont Hill show, you did say that, that what your strategy has actually cost you and cost TYT some subscribers, and members, more importantly, who financially support the show. Speaking of putting food on 75 people's table, what is your reaction to that? I know anecdotally there are people who love and support my show, even though I truly don't talk about my disagreements with you. And God, Cenk, I've been over backwards. The reason my show is at 1 p.m. is because it's right before right in between when TYT doesn't have any show. I've bent over very backwards to accommodate TYT. But there are people who love my show who say, I had to stop supporting TYT for a lot of political disagreements. And what do you say to those people, or how does that make you feel?
I refuse to be wrong on purpose. So we lost a lot of members and paying subscribers when I started criticizing Obama from the left. And I said he shouldn't be drilling in the Gulf and he shouldn't be bailing out the bankers without any consequences, et cetera. And people were outraged. But I didn't do it because I didn't know the term back then, but I know it now. It's called audience capture, and I'm not going to do it. So if you say at the time, people were like, no, be pro-Obama, be pro-Obama. I'm like, no, I'm not going to lie to you on purpose. And now some folks are saying, no, tell us the far left is totally right. And then that like there is no crime and on and on and on, right? No, I'm not going to be purposely wrong. And so I'm not going to do audience capture, and I'm not going to say that. And so how could I be a grifter and say at the same time, I'm willing to sacrifice a lot of money that I'm super worried about for all of us at TYT to do the right thing? That's the exact opposite of grifting. That's saying I'm standing on principle. I'm standing on what I think is the real viewers of TYT and representing them. And Franny, what you're not seeing is there's so many people on the left who are afraid to state their real opinions because they're going to get shellacked online. All the far left is going to come out and call them a right winger and a fascist, et cetera. They're so scared to actually state their own opinions because the far left has so much more power than they realize in terms of the social media ecosystem.
Sure, right? I agree. And I do think that it would benefit all of us to be a little bit less online, because I do think there is a real left. They are in labor unions. They work in homes. They, they are serving people Starbucks, right? Like there are real leftists. Yes. They are, let's be real, they are on the streets demonstrating for Palestinian human rights. They've been on the streets, although I know this gets into prickly territory, but they've been on the streets saying things like defund the police, saying things like Black Lives Matter. And I know you might disagree with them, but there are real leftists who don't just live online. And so I hear you about, I absolutely concede our movements. We always talk about this. How can our movements be more attractive? Be, as Michael Albert, who wrote this book called Participatory Economics, he used to say, how do we make the left sticky, where people want to be there and stay there? And sure, it's by not over policing one another, and it's by meeting people where they're at. And I think that is absolutely true. But for me, it is not about, it's not about what I see is conceding to a right-wing framing within the ceiling of Trumpism, because there's always a ceiling, and that ceiling is Donald Trump.
But Franny, I'm not conceding.
He is. I think he is conceding, but he doesn't think he's conceding, but I do. You know what I mean? I do. I think he's conceding. Look, person to person, meeting people where they are at is complicated. Politically, we don't need to meet people where they're at necessarily in the same way, right? Chad says, do you think the left kind of discourages honesty? No, I don't. I think that's like I don't know what political debate term I could use here, but that feels like a straw man. I don't know what the proper word to use here is, but no. The left does not discourage honesty. The left doesn't want to hear you pretending that you're not catering to MAGA when you are. He is catering to MAGA whether he wants to recognize it or not. He doesn't want to recognize it. That's fine. He doesn't have to, but that's what he's doing. It is what he's doing. It is what he's doing, whether he wants to admit it or not. And we'll get there in a second. I'll show you how he does it. But, okay. Chet says, do you think the way Cenk is acting has to do with the fact that TYT is losing momentum? It's scared, angry, wrong, and strong. It's just very human. Look, when you don't quite fit in the bubbles very clearly, you go where you're wanted. And the right is really good at making you feel wanted, even when they're using you as the butt of the joke, right? The reason I left political bubbles was because I realized I was never going to feel at home anywhere. But where I feel most at home is with people who share similar goals and feelings to me, you know? And so I try to end up there. But truthfully, like, I do think you exist outside of politics. I think these people don't get to because they've made their whole life politics and that's what they're doing as public figures. Oh my God, my whole monitor just turned off. Oh, okay. But like, it's one of those things where person to person, Cenk is having a real human moment. But that doesn't mean that he's not causing harm. J.K. Rowling is truly human. And because of her pain and trauma is turning into is a bigoted person who's hurting a lot of people. Hurt people. And these people are hurting a lot of people because they're traumatized, because they're in pain, because they're suffering. And I've been there, you've been there. If we really look at my life, like I could look at my life and point every time I was traumatized and I went one way or another because I was trying to find people who could validate me and see me. And then I realized like, oh, no one's ever going to see me. Not really. And then I realized like, it's my job to see me and stop expecting people to do it. And my life got so much better. And then my life became so much just more peaceful because I stopped expecting these groups of people to see me. And now I just do what I think is right and I explain why I do it. And when I'm wrong, I change my idea and I change the way that I do things. Look at me. I'm not buying meat. Who is she? Who is this girl who doesn't drink dairy anymore? Who is she? Who am I? I can't believe it, girl. But I know that I change because I know that I see it in the work that I do. So I might be wrong, but one day I will correct it. I will always try to correct when I am wrong. But people that are in their trauma, like J.K. Rowling, she can't ever admit she's wrong. She's too vindicated in her trauma to ever let herself be wrong.
And facts have to matter. Facts have to matter.
Well,
like you're painting me as a collaborator when I haven't collaborated at all. All I've done is argue for our positions. And in fact, you showed a couple of times when I argued for our positions, right? And if you showed all the right-wing shows that I was on, you would see me fighting for left-wing positions on right-wing shows that no one's ever done. And do you know that on the Patrick
I've been on Piers Morgan. I do that a lot.
Ugh, I hate Piers Morgan. Gross. I think going on Piers Morgan is so low. I think it's so beneath people. And I hate that Hassan does it. I hate that she does it. I hate that anyone goes on Piers Morgan. He's such a disgusting human being. He's so gross. And the audacity that he's using you for views. He needs you to come on his show. He needs you for views. And I hate that. I think it's so beneath people to go on Piers Morgan.
So, oh yeah, if you count Piers Morgan, I totally agree with you. So
he does it too, Cenk.
Patrick Bet Davis show. I made the second to last time I was on. I made a case for paid family leave. They polled their audience. 75% of that right-wing audience said yes, we should pass paid family leave. Who else has done that? And for that, I get called a collaborator, and I implicate others in my collaboration.
So Hassan looks like what Cenk looks to people here. Hassan looks like that to the socialist that I played at the beginning of the stream, Vex. So Vex is looking at Hassan saying, I can't believe you're talking to Bernie and AOC. And Hassan's like, what the fuck? I'm literally bridge building. Then we look at Cenk and go, I can't believe you're talking to Patrick Bet Davis. And he goes, or David, and he goes, I'm building bridges. We all look like that to somebody. Bubbles. We all look like that to somebody. The question is, where do you belong? And the question is, who are you most alike? And the question is, you know, do we even understand that's what's happening everywhere?
Can you not see how unfair that is?
So what is the goal then? Do you hope that maybe some of those 75% or people who heard your argument around paid family leave are like, you know what? Let me check out TYT. Like, let me see what they're about. Like, I liked what he said on this one thing. Is that also the
Hold on. Chet says, do you think political bubbles issues are they trying to be hyper intellectual and they lose their humanity, which pushes people away? Is MAGA successful because it's very dumbed down? Politics is not about your humanity. It's about feeling like you're on the winning team. People will vote for America to genocide other countries just so they end up in the world power. Like, don't get it twisted that people are terrified of becoming a developing country. They look at developing countries and they think, oh God, I never want to get there. So I will promote America. I will keep America safe. I will fight for America to kill other people. So at least the country I'm in and the kids I'm raising, they're in that superpower. Never forget, even the most marginalized American is the most privileged person globally. Never forget that marginalized Americans who are suffering under capitalism and white supremacy are also benefiting from living in the superpower compared to those around the world. So sometimes people will vote America so they don't have to be a victim of America, even though here we can be victims of America while living here. The irony is clear. Americans can be victims to America, but better a victim in America than a victim outside of it. That's how some people think.
The goal.
So,
because remember, politics isn't about truth, it's about winning. That's why all these governments, all these men are fighting for land. That's what Israel is doing. They're playing a political game. They're not playing a human game.
the strategy is to coalesce populists on the thing. Now I'm saying it for the 200th time because it's not getting through.
So it's not about audience then. It's not about maybe getting some of their audience. Because I understand. I don't know what you're talking about in like what framework. You know,
So-
are you a movement leader? Are you going to
Yeah.
start a political party, or are
Maybe.
you just the head of an online channel? I mean, the latter is what we know to be true, right?
Yeah. So look, when Jimmy left and other people left, oh yeah, Young Turks are going down, blah 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 blah. No, it was total nonsense. Never had any issues. Here, this is a giant fight, and we do have issues. Okay, and so that is standing on principle. No, it's not like I didn't know that we were going to get into this huge issue, right? And that the other left-wing hosts were going to take this as a great opportunity to try to whittle us down. And so we've gone through all that, and we've done that. So why am I doing it? Number one, because I believe absolutely that it is the right strategy and the right policy, and to the ultimate goals that you're asking about, Franny. Number one, we've got to win the primary 2028. So,
Sure.
So why am I saying things where I go, hey, I am center left and I do not agree with far left? Because I believe far left will be used, and you can disagree. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing. Kyle Kalinske disagreeing, no problem. You disagree, no problem. Jordan,
Hassan
everybody
disagrees,
disagrees, no problem. It's only when they lie and they do bad faith is when I've got the issue. Okay. So you guys disagree, no problem, guys. Okay. But my goal is, number one, in order to win that primary, we've got to convince the normies that we're not going to release all the criminals. I know it sounds like hyperbole, and I know that really bothers people, but that's how they're thinking. That's why Oakland recalled their mayor 65-35, because now they started to think that the word progressive means release the criminals. No, it doesn't mean that. It means Medicare for all. It means paid family leave. It means higher wages. So that's why I have to distinguish in order to win that primary between the center left and the far left. And also because it's true, I am center left. And the great majority of those voters are center left. They do not agree.
Okay. I think Cenk is correct that the average voter, first, falls for AI videos, 2, doesn't research what they see, 3, is going to learn to associate progressivism with homelessness or crime or anything else, is going to be a person that thinks Elon Musk is so based because he thinks empathy is weakness, that at the end of the day, like, Cenk might be correct, but I don't think the left has the spoons to carry those people, because those people aren't going to be where they need to be. Again, we're not trying to get people who are already voting. We're trying to get new voters who don't know. I think that should be the strategy. Not that I care to give my solutions in that way, but I feel like he's trying to save a sinking ship, and the progressives have already hopped onto a brand new one, and it has Wi-Fi. Okay? Cenk is like sitting in this ship it's sinking, girl. Progressives have moved over. Our ship is awesome. It's decked out. It's got a tanning booth, and it's got fucking all these great It's got Wi-Fi. We can watch Hassan stream on it. Everything's based. Okay, love it. The conservatives have their fucking mega ship, and we're all just floating. And it's sinking. And Cenk is like, no, I can save it. He's like trying to dig the water out of the boat. I can save it. I can save it. It's done. Stop trying to save it. Americans don't want to hear nuance. Americans don't want the gray. They want black and white. What are we going to do? They want strong leaders. They want no bullshit. They want to know they're going to be safe. And right now, no one is giving that to them. Right now, no one is providing. The Democrats or the Republicans are not providing people eggs they can afford, schools they can send their kids to, or heck, even a situation where they can afford those kids in the first place. The dilemma is that Republicans are going to double down, so they're out. You're never going to get a Republican, so forget that. You might get people who haven't registered to vote yet, maybe, right? But like, he's trying to save the sinking ship, and it's like, let it go, girl. Let it go. And then there's Bill Maher and J.K. Rowling and soon to be Cenk, who's just like, I guess now Kurt and him is there, where they've made like they're on rafts and the raft is being pulled by the conservatives, but the line is so long, they think they're still independent of them. But the Republicans actually have like a line feeding into their raft that's like keeping the air going. So they keep them afloat, but they're not going to give them a ship. But they're like, see, we're independent of everybody. We're our own thing. Your own thing is reliant on the conservatives keeping you platformed. That's what you're reliant on. You are reliant on bigotry keeping you afloat. Well, you say you're here fighting for marginalized communities like Bill Maher always says, or J.K. Rowling. We care about women. We care about gay people. Okay, girl. Okay, girl. You know? Chet says, Britt, now that you've explained it's about power, I'm seeing this conversation so differently. I always saw politics of a reflection of what humanity you want, but it's just power and being right. Totally. 100, girl. 100. But there's a lot of good power to be held in politics, like to be had in politics, right? The question is, do we know how to strategize for it to get it, to help people? And is the power going to corrupt us on our way up? Power corrupts, or it exposes the evil that's already inside you. So the question is there anyone who can really become a good political figure in the same way? Can anyone become a good billionaire under capitalism? Can anyone become a good political figure without the power corrupting? Who knows? You know, who knows?
With the far left on some of the extreme trans issues, crime issues, etc.
You don't think that
when we get to the general election, just to finish the thought,
Yeah.
when we get to the general election, can we win over some of those former Bernie people that went to the right wing? Can we win over the independents and moderates that are not MAGA but voted for Trump because they says Trump was more anti-establishment than Kamala Harris was? Can we win those guys over so that our side wins? I believe we can, but and I'll use myself as an example again. So when they tried the Muslim ban, I have every right to call them Islamophobe from here to the end of the earth. I have every right to be concerned about me and my family, okay? But I don't believe it's the right strategy to call them Islamophobes and to push them away. I think the correct strategy is to go in the room, get some agreement on some things that we agree on, and then fight over the things.
See, he thinks it's 2000. This isn't 2000. This is not politics via Al Gore Bush, girl. This isn't about being like, I know 9/11 just happened, but we should humanize people. But this isn't that. He is fighting a losing battle. He is in a sinking ship. He is so dusty. He's so old. Get on TikTok, learn some slang, start saying bet. Shout out to the Black communities. Thank you for giving us so many great things in terms of language. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. He's so old. He's so dusty. Just girl, okay? He's like, we just need to explain to people like they're not Islamophobic, but what they're doing could be Islamophobic. Okay. You can't, bro, it's not enough. You also can't rush the process. This is why I say you can't convince people to be, you know what I'm saying? You can't convince people to be something they aren't. We can't just tell Cenk he has to have an embodied experience that changes him. We all have to have embodied experiences that change how we show up in the world. Otherwise, logically getting it isn't enough. Logically getting something isn't enough. You have to have the embodied experience, and he's not there yet.
Things we don't agree on, but treat each other as American citizens and human beings. And then at the end go, hey, by the way, I'm Muslim, okay? So do you think someone like me should be banned from the country? And when you do it that way, 9 out of 10 times they go, well, no, of course not. Of course not. But if I came in and I said, you're an Islamophobe.
Yeah, but they say, of course not, but then they vote for policy that does it anyways. You sit down with a normal ass person and they'll say, of course, I don't think trans people should get hurt or abused, but then vote for policy that does just that. I don't care what conversations you're having. I care how they vote. I care how policy gets pushed out.
But you're a racist and a bigot. They'd say, ban this mother effer, right? And so So I just think you guys have the wrong strategy and some wrong policies. But that's a normal part of a healthy debate. We could have had that debate without people making wild accusations.
Well,
Instead of just saying we disagree, they're collaborator, right-wing fascists, etc.
I really hope that you do, and I hope, let's leave it. I really do hope that you can get past what you feel are slights, to actually speak to some of the people that you're talking about, to be in more rooms with leftists who you may disagree with, and more people who are ultimately on your side. I've had the same conversation.
He thinks he's doing it. That's why he's stressed. He thinks he is doing that because he keeps going on all these people's shows, but he's not. He can't see them, and they don't understand you. He can't see you, girl. He cannot see you. He's not having that embodied experience yet. He doesn't see you. And so Cenk doesn't get it either. He's like, I'm showing up. I'm there. Why don't you see I'm there? Because they're not seeing each other. They might be in the same room, but they're not seeing each other.
With Van Jones back in 2016, man, it's like I'm deja vuing all over again, where I told him the left is more on your side than the right, and he's like, no, the left wants to tear me down. But anyway, Cenk, it's really great to have such a candid, open conversation. I like that we can both be very Mediterranean about it and get like super mad, but then rein it in and be cool, and then be like, we're we're just gonna yell, and then we're gonna be fine, and then we're gonna get over it. So that's the kind of beer I like to have.
Yes, thank you.
And but not with Charlie Kirk. And I will leave it at that. Everybody, you can check out all of the interviews.
Which, by the way, happened with Gavin Newsom, right? Having Charlie Kirk on for his new podcast back. Okay, that's the section I want to show you, but there's another section I plan to show you. Give me a second. Give me a second while I pull it up. It might take me a second. Give me a second. Give me a second. Is it this one? Hold on, let me hear it really fast. Yeah, hold on. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Give me a second. Okay. Hold on. This is it. Let me show you. So, they're in the middle of a conversation. This is earlier in the pod or the conversation they're having. And Francesca, who I guess does stage work, is reviewing a clip. We're going to see a clip of Cenk talking to Charlie Kirk. And she's basically making the point to Cenk that they're using you. And he's saying, no, I'm convincing the audience. Listen, I'm going to convince them by showing up and representing myself. Like they're really going to hear me and I'm going to change their mind. Okay. So that's kind of like the setup.
Like, file your nails or something, because this was not good. This was not a good look during that conference.
I want to ask you guys something. Do you believe that trans Americans should have the same constitutional rights as all Americans to employment, healthcare, and housing? Constitutional rights.
Okay, Cenk, I'm a stand-up comic, so I listen to crowds regularly. I know when they are booing, groaning, or in this case, there is a whistle of disapproval, and I know when they are cheering. Now let's play it again. They're not on board with trans people having the same constitutional rights.
I want to ask you guys something. Do you believe that trans Americans should have the same constitutional rights as all Americans to employment, healthcare, and housing? Constitutional rights.
Do you want me to translate?
You got like maybe like a sixth of the audience. There's a couple people clapping very, very. No, okay.
So,
and then
Brandy, let's break it down.
This is the best. Wait, this is the best part. You got to keep watching because it's the best that like not only you get hung out to dry on this like can we all agree shtick that you're on, and they don't meet you,
God,
and then Charlie meets you with this
constitutional right to housing.
Wait, I love it.
Well, there is no constitutional right to housing.
So then he goes like, wait a minute, not only don't I not agree with you on the trans people, because he never answered it. He's like, actually, fuck your right to housing anyway. And I know that's not even what the Constitution says. It's just equal protection around housing, right? It doesn't say you have a right to housing. I wish it did. But like, it's just amazing to me. Like, do you see? And you look at him and there's a moment you're just kind of like, there's just this moment and it's just like, what are we doing, Jake? Like, what's going on here?
See, this is a great example. you're being so unbelievably unfair about that interaction. The reason I did that, Franny, and I knew I was taking a big risk,
You were.
is because I wanted to try to get some of them to, because I've done it on other right-wing shows and it worked really well. It didn't work really well this time. That's why it was a risk. But I challenged them on how trans people are like every American and they should have constitutional rights.
Well, let's watch a little bit. Let's watch whether you did it. Let's watch whether you did it. Did you do it or not?
Let me finish, Randy.
Did you
This
do
is
it or
super
not?
important, and you're totally smearing me on a thing that is crazy.
I'm playing you the clip. I'm not smearing you. I'm literally playing the clip. Jenk, I'm playing the clip.
Will you let me talk? I said I had the courage to challenge them on constitutional rights for trans people. You asked me to have the courage to challenge them. I did, and now you're attacking me for it.
No, I'm not attacking. I'm not attacking you for it. I'm saying you have characterized this.
Look at this. They didn't agree with me.
No. I'm saying
I tried to get them to agree to constitutional rights. That's exactly what we should do. We should say trans people are just like every American citizens, and they should have constitutional rights. I go and have the courage to challenge that audience to that, and then you want to make fun of it? Like
I'm saying,
agree with you. What do you want? Do you want me to challenge them, or do you not want me to challenge them? Make up your mind.
it was a big swing. You agreed that it was a little bit of a miss. And I think,
by the way, you're not exactly right about that either. So I was in the room. 2/3 of them cheered. 1/3 of them clearly did not, and groaned and
the people
cheered.
who were cheering were not mic'd properly. I understand. Look. It was a swing. It's good you asked, but I didn't think that you really had like a save for that, because I think you were like, you actually gave them credit for the few people that agreed. And meanwhile, Jane, you have so much disdain for our side. If I say, hey, I believe trans people should play in sports, you have so much disdain. You get so mad. But here you are, and here is what you say.
Constitutional right to housing.
Okay, so I hear you. What I got out of that, guys.
I'm just trying to be the interpreter.
Yeah. No, there was a lot of applause and there was some consternation, right? I'll take it. It's a start. It's a start. So guys, when we can even disagree about what's constitutional, Second Amendment, housing, etc. But just let's treat everyone as Americans. And I say that to the right and I say it to the left.
Sure.
Okay, so
When's the last time they heard that message?
For sure, bro. We have to treat every American like an American. Until the Trump administration comes in and takes LGBT representation off their websites, or at least the T, until he puts in policy to attack minority communities, immigrants who are coming here even legally. Like, I think what Cenk is missing, and what a lot of centrists missing, and I went through this stage in my political journey where I was like, the best way to talk to a conservative is to convince them that trans people are Americans just like them, and that they want less government in our lives, right? But I think Cenk doesn't understand that transphobia trumps everyone getting representation. Look, white Americans were pro-welfare until they realized Black Americans would get it. White Americans were pro-welfare until they found out Black Americans would benefit from it. I don't know why everyone doesn't get it. Racism, homophobia, transphobia trumps their delusional idea that everyone's an American should be treated as such. White Americans were pro-welfare until they found out Black Americans would benefit from it. And since then, what is welfare? It's like a dog whistle for conservatives to be anti-Black, as if white people aren't the majority of people on welfare in this country. So again, Cenk is running into a very centristy problem of thinking that he can convince racists to care about Black people or Asian people or whatever's dignity, people of color's dignity, by saying they're Americans. They don't think they're American. They don't think they're worthy enough of being American. They don't think trans people are worthy. They don't think you're worthy. So they don't count. They want to fight for all Americans as long as they fit into their stereotype of what they think that looks like. But if you don't fit that stereotype, then they don't give a fuck about you. They're never going to give a fuck about you. And that's the problem. And Cenk is falling for it still. All these years he's been in politics. Do you know what I'm saying? When I'm saying, okay, let me show you. Girls, let's bring out the paint. Let's bring out the paint. Let's bring out the paint. Bringing out the paint. Bringing out the paint. Okay, so you see here, very important. This is a bubble. And this, okay, so Cenk, for some reason, is still here. This is where he's operating. Okay. Hassan and the streamers and all of us were like here. Okay. And then there's somebody who knows who this is. And they're operating here. Okay. Maybe we can just say the politicians or something, or maybe even not. It's like he's all the way over here and we're like here. And then whoever, maybe the future is here. Maybe this is the goal for all of us. But like he's still here and he's like, we're still operating in this bubble. No. Okay. He is, okay. He's in a bubble. 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 Okay. So now we have all these bubbles that are, of course, in one large bubble. Okay. Because we all exist within bubbles. And he's over here. Here's Cenk's bubble. Over here. Woo woo. Okay. Here's like Hassan and all the leftists that are like, what the fuck are you doing, Cenk? Okay. Here's like all the Trumpers who are in their bubble. Okay. Here's maybe all the, I'm not political. I don't know. Okay. Here are the centrists. I don't know who these are. Maybe the anarchists or something. But Cenk is here on his little island. And he is not actually connected to any of these other islands the way he thinks they are, or bubbles, right? He thinks he is. He thinks he thinks he's the most reasonable, but he doesn't understand how small his little bubble is. All these other bubbles have more traction than his bubble does, but he doesn't get it. He doesn't know why. Like, he doesn't understand it because he literally can't see it. He can't see that the rest of us realize this was a sinking ship, that this isn't going to work. Okay, so going back to the ship idea, right? Here are the leftists on their ship. Here are the conservatives on their warship. Here's Cenk. Here's like, you know, J.K. Rowling and Bill Maher, because they're actually, look, well, actually, no, maybe they'd be on the same. Maybe they're like right here next to him because they're actually doing better than him. You know what's worse is I think J.K. Rowling and Bill Maher might be doing better than Cenk, which is crazy. But I actually think they might be more successful. His ship is so tiny, and all of us were like, fuck that, we're going to join over here. And all the conservatives were like, fuck that, we're going to join here. And I made the conservative bubble bigger because America's still bigoted and racist and they have more numbers. Okay. But he's like on this tiny little boat, and we're all like, bro, get off the boat. And he won't even hop over to this boat, but he's kind of adjacent. They're kind of like neighbors. Right. And I'm like, dude, but the problem is like nobody really wants him because he doesn't want them. He doesn't want them. And they don't want him. Cenk has to realize he's all alone. I'm all alone. There's no one here beside me. He's all alone, bro. And the only people that are going to fall for Cenk rhetoric are other people who are as slighted as he is in the same exact way. You're on a sinking ship, dude. Get off the sinking ship. But he can't because his conviction is in this sinking ship. He believes in this sinking ship to the point where like he'd rather drown trying than abandon ship. And it will happen. It's happening right now. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Never.
Thank you for, you don't know, I guess thank you, but you have so much grace for people who really were groaning and not on board with what you said.
When did I say I have grace for them?
I mean, no, you said it right there. You said, hey, I'll take it. And it was like, this is what we got to do.
2/3 of the room said, yay, trans constitutional rights. When's the last time 2/3 of AmFest
why do you not extend the same grace to so-called radical lefties?
You know who Cenk is? Cenk is the person at the family gathering who makes space for like the most bigoted people and argues with them, but always is the most compassionate and uses all his spoons doing that and doesn't understand why he's not getting it back. And then he's mad at the other leftists in the room who won't do the same emotional labor he's doing without understanding it's because we've already done it for years and it's not worth it to us anymore, but you can keep going if you want, but we're burnt out. We already did it. We already did all that emotional labor in our own ways and we're tired, dude. We've already done it for years. Everyone burns out eventually. And Cenk has to burn out or not burn out. But like, again, I don't love my family any less than I did at any point in my life. I love them more every day. Just because I don't talk to them every day doesn't mean I love them less. It just means that, you know, at some point, I'm sick of always being the person in the conversation who is the most compassionate and meeting them where they are at every point and always putting up with their Trump rhetoric because I am a kinder person. Because I think it is unkind that every time you talk to somebody, they have to bring up their bigotry. It is unkind that every time a trans person walks into the room, you have to question their existence. It is unkind that every time I get on the phone and they ask me, how's my health? They have to follow it up with, I hope you don't believe that false, medical doctor, trickster, blah, 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 while pushing their chiropractors on YouTube as knowing more. The audacity of conservatives to be cynical of doctors while pushing chiropractors is exhausting. That doesn't mean I love them less. It means for this era of my life, whether it lasts a month or a year, distance makes a heart grow fonder. Open with boundaries. I love you, but every time I talk to you, you do nothing but belittle me and remind me of why I'm wrong when you never even give a chance to my thought process. They're not bad people. They're stunted. They're closed off. That's not my job. That's not your job. Cenk thinks it's your job, and that's fine. He can make that his job, but he can't tell me to make it mine. This is why I say you cannot demand people to do things that you're doing. I don't hold people to my standards. I hold myself to my standards. I don't hold you to my standards, right? It's unfair. Just like when I will meet my Republican family again, just like the way I do love my MAGA family, I'm not abandoning them. I'm not telling you to do that. People tell me all the time, Brittany, don't you make too much space for your MAGA family? I make just the right amount of space. I make the right amount of space for my joy. I pull back when I need to. I engage more when I can, but I don't overexert myself by giving them space the way I used to. But that doesn't mean it's wrong if I go back to giving them so much more space. It's none of your fucking business what I do for my family. It's none of your fucking business where I meet my MAGA family. But it is my business if you're telling me to do it. It is my business if you come, into my space and you're like, you have to do this. Don't tell me what to do. I will meet them appropriately, as you should too. The problem with Cenk is he's doing a thing where he's like, you should do this. Now, he feels like the leftists are telling him what to do. Like, hey, you have to do this. You don't have to do anything. Just a reminder, philosophically, you don't have to do anything. Which in some ways is doing plenty.
Really glad we're back to this, Franny, because this is important. And we mentioned in the beginning, and I wanted to come back to it.
Mhm.
So having grace for the left, I run the network, and everybody gets to have their own opinion. Everybody gets to fight me. Everybody gets to state their own opinion without any editorial control. First of all,
but you do go ballistic on them like you went ballistic on me earlier.
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
get, and you
Yes,
and you
but
always
Franny,
say, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah,
You want me to
but
do
I
that?
get
I
angry
can do it
because
too.
that's
You're wrong, you're an idiot, you're
But
wrong.
Franny,
We can do it.
but
We know
Franny,
what you do when you disagree. It's
but
not,
Franny,
it's not, I'll take
but
it.
Hold on.
I'll
This is
take it.
super important for the audience to know. But so we fight, right? When we disagree, I say you're wrong, you say I'm wrong.
Very
But
rarely.
is there any consequences afterwards? Do I then threaten your job? Do I take people off the
I mean,
air?
I barely
No,
have a job
no,
with y'all, but
no.
look, first of all, we rarely ever, back to what I'm saying, Cenk, who's your main co-host?
Yeah, on the
Yes.
Young Turks.
When
But
you
know
say,
that there's like over 24 Young Turks contributors and hosts.
I know, I understand
Right.
that.
So
And
okay, but
I'm
Franny,
trying to tell you that there is in fact, Cenk, let's just be real. We said this privately. I'll say it publicly now. About a year ago, around the time of the trans stuff, and the trans sports stuff, you said to me, hey, Francesca, just so you know, and I don't think it's not a secret, but you didn't tell the audience. It was like, hey, just, like TYT main show is kind of like mainstream progressives. Like that's sort of what we want to be. And, we're more mainstream, just so you know, we're like moderate progressives kind of thing. And I was like, okay. And then I said to you, why don't we have a debate? Like, why don't you bring John and I on? We debate, you and Anna. We could talk about trans issues. We could talk about, crime. We could talk about all the things that always, get under our skirts. Like, we could talk about that stuff. And that was like, you didn't seem that very excited about that.
Franny, that is a crazy standard. So first of all,
Standard. No, I'm just being honest.
hold on,
Just to
hold
say, like, we've
Franny,
never
can I
had that
just
space.
answer? Can I answer? Okay.
Are you mad someone's talking too much? Is Cenk you or mad someone else is talking too
Yeah.
much?
So when do I get animated? When people cut me off. That's what drives me crazy.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So now the thing that you just said, that was our private conversation, I literally said at the very beginning of this broadcast. Okay. So I said populist establishment is one spectrum, and we're on the extreme end of populism. Left-right spectrum is different, and we're not on the extreme of the left. I said we're kind of in the middle, not the moderate BS that the mainstream media does, right? Oh, Joe Manchin is moderate. No, he's not. Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell are moderate. No, they're not. They're radical corporatists, okay? They've perverted the word, okay? So, but am I in the center of the left? yes, I'm in the center of the left, and so is Anna. So like people catch feelings over that, but the polling shows it, elections show it, everything shows we're in the center of the left, and I'm proud to be there. I don't want to be on the far left.
I don't think,
but I don't block anyone from being on the far left. And we've had thousands of conversations. And the reason why I'm saying your standard is unfair is you're saying you and John were not involved in those debates, but I've had those debates on there, and I'll have more. I don't care. I'm not shy about it at all. Do I look shy about debating or discussing? So if you want to have another one on the Young Turks, me and you at the 5 o'clock hour or whatever it might be, because 3 to 5. So I'm saying Pacific time. Everybody knows Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, we do the show, and that's a news show. So we go through the news items, right? But now sometimes what we're doing is at 5 o'clock, we're having guests on for longer conversations. So if more progressives that are on the just as populist as us or somewhere else on the populist spectrum, but to the left of us on that spectrum want to come on, great. I believe in my opinions 100%. I'm here to defend it. That's why I'm on this show.
Well, that's But part of the problem is that he does believe in them at 100%. That's the problem. He believes in them 100%. And he's not willing to see where he could be wrong. And maybe, he's just not there, and maybe he'll never be, but it is what it is.
What gets me animated is when others say, no, Cenk, you are not allowed to have that opinion. I give everybody the...
Well, that's the thing is like, you are allowed to have that opinion, and there might be a consequence for that. Like, to be honest with you, I pull away from people. I've made it more of an effort, like, to focus my energy around certain kinds of people. It's hard because you do lose momentum. You lose collaborations. Like, I would love to talk to more progressive people. I would love to collab and build audiences with like more progressive people. But it feels scary to collab with a bunch of people. And the only people who want to collab with you are people that are opposed to you because they know it's good for views. And that's the thing that does bring in people is people want to see people argue, right? But it's difficult because like, I would love to argue with other like progressives or liberals and have conversations like talking about ideas. But also it's scary because you don't want to platform somebody that might be dangerous in some ways, right? But Cenk does believe in his ideas 100%. The dilemma is like he doesn't understand why people are disappointed in that. Like he doesn't understand that people might pull away from him because he feels like, I think he feels abandoned. Just like Anna did. I think they feel abandoned. That's why they're so passionate about this. I also think that he thinks he has a chance. There's a part of this podcast where I think we're going to cover it. I think we're going to cover it. If we don't, we don't. But I think this section has it where he said, like she said, would you go to Mar-a-Lago? And he said, yes, if I could get 20 minutes with Trump, maybe I could convince him. And that audacity, the fact that Cenk in any way thinks he could convince Trump of anything tells me he is fucking crazy. Now he says it's like a 20% chance. That's crazy. I think he has a 1% chance of convincing Trump of anything. But the fact that he's like, just get me in a room with Trump, 20% chance. Like, there's just no way that Trump gives a fuck what you think. There's just no way. And it's that arrogance that feels so frustrating for people because we know who Trump is going to listen to, and it's not going to be Cenk from the TYT. You know what I'm saying?
So the space to have their own opinion, and I run the network. But Cenk, even though you run the network, even if you didn't run the network, you're not allowed to have that opinion because that opinion aids and abets racist, sexist, whatever excuse we're using. But you're not allowed to have it as an immoral opinion, and you're not. And I do not agree to that.
I've been an example for the last hour of trying to hear you out on your opinion on all of this, and I feel like I've gotten. When the converse happens, and I explain that I think that there's a fine line between being anti-establishment and fascistic. There's a fine line between being populist and, pro-authoritarian. That so many throughout history, authoritarians, Mussolini, have been massive populists. They were loved and liked so long as certain groups of people weren't included in that populism. And I think there's a better way to do populism. And so
okay, you tell me, Franny, what's your genius idea for how to win the voters back without ever talking to them?
Well, here's my genius idea. Let's just say, okay, just imagine you had the biggest YouTube channel for, progressive media. Just imagine you had that. And you had a massive failure in the Democratic establishment. Kamala Harris gets her ass handed to her. Biden didn't drop out. And people are scrambling. They're running like, rats off a sinking ship from MSNBC, from Pod Save America, and all these Beltway bros that lied to them about the Democratic Party having this in the bag, knowing what they were doing, that never talked about capitalism, that never talked about corporate donors, that never talked about any of that stuff. And I would love, if I had a network, to be the place where people from the center left or liberals, the wicked liberals, to come over and say, hey, let's think systematically about this. Let's think long-term about this. Let's think about political revolution. Let's think about getting serious about the 99% against the 1%. That's what I would do.
That's exactly what I'm doing. So you're welcome. I explained exactly.
I don't.
Hold on, let me answer.
I don't see you doing that.
No, you're wrong. Again, you're wrong. So I explained how Pod Save America and the
Oh, I just heard a very loud bang outside, and so I jumped. That's why I jumped. Oh my God, my heart is in my fucking vagina. Oh my God. Like the stream, watching Brittany get scared on the stream, like the stream.
you and Morning Joe were so full of crap, pretending that they knew all along that Joe Biden was had trouble. Then why didn't you say it, you liars? Why did you protect him all along? I ran against Joe Biden. I did a petition against Joe Biden. I said we should do an open primary. My number one motivating factor is to find a populist left figure that wins that 2028 primary. That is the most important thing in the world. And now you've got me scared, Franny, that all of a sudden, like, if the far left peels off and goes and agrees with the establishment and votes with them, I will lose my freaking mind. It will be the greatest betrayal of this movement that I have ever seen. So I am massively against
I don't think you consider
anyone on the left should be massively against the establishment. So what you're using is fear of the right-wing populism going south on us, which is a real fear, which I'm trying to guard against, to say, like, to now all of a sudden, like, well, maybe the establishment's not so bad. No, the establishment's horrible. It's horrible. I'm not going back in that prison. I'd rather be in the populist woods with real human beings fighting and battling and trying to get to the right answer and the right coalitions than to be in an establishment prison where we're now locked up by Mitch McConnell and goddamn Dick Cheney and Joe Biden and Pelosi, and we're marched back into let it continue the robbery. Thank you, sir, for the robbery. We appreciate your stupid
and the right's
robbery.
not robbing people.
So,
if you guys don't know, and I just looked it up to make sure, because he mentions it in this, and I was thinking about the people who may not know this about him, but Cenk ran in the primaries against Biden and wanted him to basically withdraw, right? And he's not even a natural born citizen. And then he suspended his campaign. Like, I don't know what Cenk's game is. Like, I don't know what game he's trying to play, but he's obviously got something in his head. You know what I'm saying? Like, he literally ran. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's obviously got something going on in his head where he's like, this is the plan. And I just feel like all of us are like, hey, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but nobody's like, I don't get it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's obviously passionate about something, and it feels like nobody knows what he's doing, but he knows. But it just doesn't make any sense to me personally.
Right doesn't rob people?
Like, why would he have spent time doing that?
So, no, but hey, look at that, Franny. Look at what you're saying. I just said 200 times in this interview that Trump's a fake populist and there's going to be a huge
concretely, I don't know who you're talking about. Concretely.
So you think the right's not
No.
going to
I'm just like, let me just say how I see it. Just you've explained how you see it. So I've been covering Trump since 2016. We covered his rise. One of the big videos we did in AJ Plus was like, why do people like Trump? Right. And everyone was like, oh no, we have to talk about why people like Trump. And it's so obvious. The outsider tells it like it is, very direct, not afraid to upset, the normal establishment order of like,
love AJ Plus, PS.
You got to be a politician. You got to be this. Of course, there's a million. He's kind of funny. There's a million reasons. And right. And there's a million reasons why people like him. And yet, obviously, there is a massive danger. My brain just made the biggest fart noise on me, and I do not remember exactly what I was saying. But
that's okay. So you'll remember.
No. Yeah. You're right. You say something.
Yeah. So Franny, look. It's when I talk about people attacking us, I want to be clear about this because it's really important. Yeah.
Okay, wait. You say it really quickly. Yeah, I remembered. My analysis has always been Donald Trump is a great brand master as an outsider, but he's a Trojan horse.
Yes.
That at the end of the day, even though Mitch McConnell, says his bullshit and whatever, of course he wants all the same things that Donald Trump wants. Trump is a brilliant Trojan horse for, yes, the establishment right. Look at all the neocons he's appointed. I made a joke like, oh, all the cabinet positions are going to be, and yeah, you've got a random Kash Patel and whomever, but they're going to be the people commenting on his Truth Social. It's like, nah, he's picking Huckabee. He's picking Marco Rubio. He's got Elise Stefanik. He's all these people who we're going to be at war with Iran within a couple of years. I have no doubts about that. So like, I truly, unless again, his actual base is like, no, including us, like, I just feel like, is that not clear? I thought we were all clear that Trump was literally just a Trojan horse for establishment politics. It's as if Bernie Sanders said all the things and all the right things, but when got into office, Nancy Pelosi's behind the curtain pulling the levers. Like, wasn't that just understood that that's who he was?
So no, it's more complicated than that. I agree with everything you said about Trump and why he got to be popular. He ran as anti-establishment,
Right.
as a fake populist, right?
Right.
And so that's what worked really well. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had a real populist on the left and ran on populist left? So I hope to God we all agree to that in the 2028 primaries. So in terms of the part that I don't quite agree on the Trojan horse, you're right. That's all he's done so far. In the first term, he had 4 freaking years. And his number one and almost only accomplishment was corporate tax cuts. Massive, massive corporate tax cuts. And in fact, on the Young Turks, back then I said, watch, the establishment's going to leave him the minute those tax cuts pass. I even named a name. I said Gary Cohn, his national economic advisor. Okay, he's going to leave right after the corporate tax cuts pass because that was a Trojan horse part. So you're right about that, right? But Trump is uncontrollable. So that's why that's why the Mitch McConnell and the establishment fights against Trump. During the primaries, they didn't want him because they want people that can be controlled. Trump is uncontrollable both in terrible ways and maybe potentially ways that could be positive. And that is why the establishment is scared to death of him, is because they're like, well, what if he does things that are populist in the right direction? No, right? Now, he hasn't yet, right? So, and the policy that you just mentioned, Franny, that's the one where the rubber hits the road. And so I am so curious what's going to happen. So Israel has absolute power at this point. And they're drunk on power because they believe Trump is going to give them everything that they want. And in the beginning, he definitely will. That's why he nominated Team Miriam, as I explained earlier, Stefanik, Rubio, etc. Right? And so those guys will be our neocons. They will push for us to fund Israel's wars from here to eternity. If I am wrong, then there'll never be any pushback from the right-wing populists, the MAGA base, and they'll be like, "Oh, send all of our money to Israel, start more wars.
What
Maybe
is
we
he
should fight
saying?
the wars for Israel." And then I'll come on your show and go on the Young Turks and say, "Guys, I was wrong. No, it turns out the right-wing populists, they weren't anti-war, they were just cultists, right?" Or I'll be right, and some portion of that base will go, "No, we're sick of funding Israel's wars." Not that they care about Muslims. I mean, Tucker's a good example of it.
I mean, they're only going to say they're sick of funding Israel the way they say they're sick of funding Ukraine. That's not the right. You don't want people to be sick of funding marginalized communities or people who need help or allies. We want people to stop funding genocides. We need people to be exhausted that they're funding the death of a population, not to feel exhausted that they're spending money. The fact that Republicans are convincing people not to fund Ukraine because eggs are so high, like, that's not the point. The point of not funding Israel is so they don't fucking genocide the Palestinians. Like, nobody would have a problem funding Israel as an ally if they weren't genociding Palestinians. Like, they're not simply just defending themselves. They are literally targeting and killing innocent people. I don't want to fund that. And I know America funds a lot of that around the world, but it's just like, he doesn't understand that getting people to get sick of funding wars isn't what we want. We want the right reason. We want to know that you're not funding the war for the right reason, not because you want eggs to be cheaper.
He turned on the Iraq war a year into the war, and he explained on a radio show, he's like, because these Iraqi Arab Muslims are monkeys, and I don't care about them.
Yeah,
So he doesn't do it with good intent
Sure.
or anything positive in his heart, but they genuinely want to get the hell out of wars, right?
Yes.
So if I'm right, when Trump pushes too far on Israel, they're going to push back.
I
And
think
so that's a great mystery.
I wanted to
in our own eyes.
Yes. And I want to say, for the record, here's what I'm not against. Bringing those people into the fold of a broad progressive coalition
Great.
that includes everyone. So, and does, however, if those folks are also like, yeah, because there's already too many Muslims here, right, guys? That's something that I have a line around, but that's not to say, especially if it's some random uninformed voter who's just like racist by, just sort of not genetically, but like their dad was a racist, so they are a little bit, whatever. Like those people, those people can be worked on. I do think for me, this is what a broad coalition looks like, but there are lines, and that line for me is respecting human rights and civil rights of your fellow Americans, which I think you're trying to get to. But I do want to ask, we all hate Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, but like in practice, is what you're doing that different from, like, if you were to get invited to Mar-a-Lago, Cenk?
This is it. Listen.
That different from, like, if you were to get invited to Mar-a-Lago, Cenk, wouldn't you go?
Oh, I would definitely go. And so, okay, so
To open lines of discussion.
Yeah, so good question. So let me address it. So Mika and Joe were very clear. They said we went down there because we're scared, and they wanted to court power and get access again. So to me, what is that about? That's about their ego. That's about their career. That's about their money, etc. For me, why would I go to Mar-a-Lago? Well, I'm not going to ask for any money. I never do. I don't. That's not what I do. And I don't care about their positions. I don't want to be in the Trump administration. I don't care about any of that. What do I care about? I care about policy. So I believe that if I'm in a room with Trump, I can convince him on at least one policy. Okay. And I know no one believes that, but just put me in a room with him. Okay. And I'm not going to walk out of the, and if he says no to the policy, right, then I'm gone. And I gave it my best shot and it didn't work. Okay. But at least I tried. At least I tried really hard to move that ship in the right direction. Remember, Trump likes to be popular. So that is a place where you can show him, hey, look at these populist positions, economically populist positions, which are overwhelmingly popular. Do that. So a good example is cut the Pentagon instead of cutting Medicare, right?
What
So
do you
now-
think the probability? I want to ask you a question. What do you think under Doge? What is the probability that the Pentagon is cut versus what every single Republican ultimately wants, and that's why this guy is their Trojan horse, cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid? Like, what's the probability they actually cut the Pentagon instead? I'm giving it a 4% chance on Polymarket.
We should do a bet on there.
Let's do a bet.
So no, I've got it at 20%. So not very high, but higher than what you got it at. 20% that they cut the Pentagon. So 80% that they won't.
Even okay. Discord said he thinks he's special. He thinks he is so special. He thinks he's so special. He should call himself Andrew Tate. Even the way he's framing that, would you cut the Pentagon? What conservative is gonna be like, yeah, that sounds good? No, that sounds horrible. That's horrible branding. That doesn't sound sellable at all. It doesn't even make sense. Like, what is he saying? This is what I'm saying. I'm like watching this interview and I'm just thinking, oh my God, dude, you are so out of touch. Like, you are so out of touch.
Oh, but now there's a fighter's chance that they do.
In
What is the chance that
comparison,
try
like,
to
they'd
cut
rather-
Medicare or Social- Hold
Yeah.
on. What is the chance that they try to cut Medicare or Social Security? 60%. So that's still much more likely, right?
Yes.
And I've started to see right. And by the way, here's another reason to communicate. I now am seeing right-wing hosts talking about cutting Social Security. So they're coming for Social Security. I see them talking about arresting two people. So they, the two that they're most obsessed with, Fauci and Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
So that's real, and we got to stop that. I hate Liz Cheney, but you don't arrest her because you don't like her. That's not a thing. In fact, I had a huge battle with Vinny, who's a right-wing populist that I agree with some issues on, but a huge battle on that.
Why are you even agreeing with anybody? Don't say that. See, I agree with some things. I agree with some. Don't. He's a horrible person. Don't even agree. Don't even slightly agree. Don't even say that. Don't even signal to people. See how he's trying to signal to people? See, we have some things in common. I have nothing in common with you. We do not have overlap. I don't want to be associated with you. See how Jink is like, we have some overlap. No, why do you have any overlap with those people?
On Patrick Bet Davis' show last time, I'm like, brother, you need a crime to arrest people. She hurt my feelings is not a crime, right? She disagreed with Trump is not a crime.
I mean,
right?
it is now. I mean, Kash Patel, if you are a journalist or a pundit going on MSNBC and you say something about Kash Patel, he's going to send you a defamation letter.
Discord said, is this him falling victim to being old, like how our parents are stubborn and stuck? Yeah. I think he literally is playing the 2000s political game. Yeah, this is what politics sounded like when I was a kid. When I was a kid, this was politics. He just feels so dusty and dated to me. He's so dated. He's like the wallpaper that's still in your grandma's house. Like, I get it, it's a classic, but maybe it's time for an upgrade.
Letter of defamation, whatever, a threat to sue him. And that's what's happening. I actually, and I do, here's lastly, do you have a second, a little bit more?
Yeah, and I want to say one last thing too, but go ahead, Franny.
Okay, I just want to, because this, I think, was another moment on Patrick Bet David's show that stung, and I appreciate that you got into it with Vinny. I'm not discrediting that. Again, I'm not saying all of these appearances have been 100% awful.
We're almost done, guys. I just want to get through this section. Because I just want to get through this section and then we're done.
Feel there have been moments where you throw the left under the bus more than you push back on the right. And I you might disagree with the characterization. That's how I feel. This part stung for me.
Why do you think they're losing these names? Yeah, so everything's a little bit different.
And he's talking about like the Tulsi Gabbards and RFK Jr. and why the Democrats have lost those names.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Person's different. So Tulsi, I think, was always secretly a right winger, but Bobby Kennedy Jr. was not. He was definitely a Democrat, right? And so he's a decent example. So Bobby has opinions that a lot of people on the left don't agree with, right? To which I say something revolutionary to the left. So what? Okay, he agrees with us on the environment. He agrees with us on housing, on anti-corruption. He doesn't agree with us on vaccines, fluoride, et cetera, right?
Okay, I stopped it there because you talked about, giving him a fair shot in the primaries, which I actually agree with you about. However, I take issue with, so what? My daughter's 2. she's going to be going to preschool, then to kindergarten, then into obviously in public school.
That's what I'm saying. He just so whatted vaccines. I don't want to, you know what I'm saying? Like, no. Like, he just went, oh, so he doesn't believe in vaccines. So what? Yeah, I don't want to so what that. You know? That's not where I want to so what.
Well, so what for childhood vaccinations is truly whether or not my community and my family are safe or not. Having RFK Jr. as the head of the HHS is wildly dangerous. And it's not a culture war issue, Cenk. I'm not saying.
And by the way, you know what's crazy is this is 3 months ago. And in this conversation, I don't think we're going to cover in this next few minutes, but in the part of this conversation, he's like, you're exaggerating. It's not going to be that bad. You know, they're not going to start rounding people up off the streets. Well, sir. I think he's out of touch. I think he's out of date, which happens. It happens, especially sometimes when you're too in the bubble. It happens. If you're outside the bubble, it happens. But he's too blinded. And then the fact that this guy came in, RFK Jr., he said ADHD medication is addicting. We need to get it out of kids' hands. When ADHD medication is life-saving medication. It's not perfect every round, but it literally can save your kid. It can be the difference between your kid graduating high school and not graduating high school. Your kid going to college and not going to college. Like, my mom never got her kids assessed, even though it's obviously clear we have ADHD and autism in the family. And some of us who did as adults get assessed realized, like, oh my God, the way my school could have gone different, the way my career could have gone different. And you know what's crazy is my parents will say, like, oh, why did my kids excel in this, and this? And I was like, we didn't have the right medication. We didn't have the right support. Because you kept thinking your kids are perfect the way they are, which is so lovely. The double-edged sword is my parents were like, you're perfect the way you are. Yes, but I'm so hyperactive, I can't pay attention. Yes, like, we're so distracted that our thoughts are louder than anything we can pay attention to. We needed support we couldn't have access to. Like, yes, it's so nice that you thought I was perfect the way that I was born, but the way that I was born took opportunities away from me that I could have had accessible to me had you been educated. Now, as an adult, we make amends. That's why neurodivergent people also a lot of us end up becoming adults later in life, in a sense. Like, we end up staying immature a lot longer, or like in our adolescence, because to be honest with you, like, our brains are forming slightly slower. We're operating at a different speed. We're processing differently. And yes, like, there's a reason there's a stereotype. This is a generalization. I don't mean this for everyone. We're not having a monolithic experience, but there is a stereotype that some of us are like 40-year-old kids, because even though we're going to work and we have jobs and we're paying our bills, we're still sort of operating in a recreating the teenage life we never had because we were too busy, like, burning out, basically. Again, big generalization. So yeah, it's like very frustrating, I think, to realize these things about yourself and to wonder, okay, like, when am I going to get my life on track? But also, you know, I don't need to blame my parents for not doing what I thought I would have done as a parent, but instead to break that generational curse and to make sure that I take into consideration the fact that my kids could be similar, or the fact that maybe I shouldn't have kids, or the fact that I need to take care of myself and that's enough work as it is, means that, you know, that's good enough. You know, there's so many things that we could take from this situation, but I don't want it to be resentment. I don't want it to be hate or blame. I want it to be compassion for the fact that our parents weren't perfect, and compassion for ourselves for feeling like we're behind all the time. You know? It's life. It's how it goes. But you can still be okay. I feel very accomplished. I feel very good about my life. I feel very good about what I did to turn my life around. But, you know, I'm still like not even 6 months into getting diagnosed autistic, and I'm still processing it. I'm still having like flashbacks of my life of, oh my God, this explains so much of my life. And I'm pretty sure I'm ADHD, but undiagnosed. So like, that's the irony, is like, I'm looking at my life and I'm like, oh my God, I would have done things so different if I knew. If I knew, my life would have been so much smoother. If I knew, I would have avoided so many of my regrets. If I knew, my parents would have had less opportunities to be disappointed in me. And that's the irony. If my parents had gotten me diagnosed, I would have made so many less mistakes than I made. The same mistakes that they were disappointed in me in doing, I wouldn't have done if I knew. I would have absolutely done my life different, because I would have had tools I didn't have before. Because you don't understand how much your internal world is so different when you're viewing the world, you're listening to scripts, you're following them. You're not understanding why you don't quite fit, why it isn't quite working. And everyone else seems to be doing it so much easier than you. And it's very confusing. And then you have to play it all. Like, you know what? Like, I'm telling you right now, so much of my life would have been better with a diagnosis earlier. But my parents did their best. And though it wasn't perfect, I thank them for all they did. And now at 35, I pick up the pieces and I make the best out of it. And I think I'm doing that pretty good. You know, I think I am doing it pretty good. I think I'm really proud of myself for getting a diagnosis, for coming to terms with it. Because trust me, my autistic friends were telling me years in advance, girl, you have autism. And I was like, not me, girl. Not me, girl. And they're like, you have autism. I was like, not me, girl. And it took me, you know, years to seek out a diagnosis and to have the realization that my autistic friends knew it before I did, but I knew it subconsciously my whole life. My life makes so much more sense now. I can't even explain it to you, you know? Anyways. Chet says that's what I'm working on in therapy at the moment. I'm telling you, bros. Love me some therapy. Love me some therapy, you know? All right.
Saying he's not right on some
Thank you, Chet says you're an inspiration to the rest of us undiagnosed girlies. Love you guys. Love you guys.
things. But again, what's the probability that his HHS is going to do anything to rein in corporate power or regulate, the big R word, regulate any of the
We're
ways
almost
that they
done with
poison
this.
us? No, they're not going to do that. What they will do is get rid of any vaccination requirements and just so
which they're already working on.
Even more distrust in what has protected millions.
Jank being sympathetic and saying what's the big deal that he disagrees on vaccinations is exactly what the right wing wanted from him. They wanted people to think it wasn't a big deal. And now we have RFK Jr. in the White House fucking everything up. Everything we've accomplished. Parents are dying under the weight of realizing they can't get medication for their children. You think parenting was hard before? Now you have unmedicated children that needed that medication to get through school. And by the way, schools, they kick neurodivergent kids out at higher rates because they're unruly. Your ADHD children are going to get kicked out of school. Your autistic kids will get kicked out of school without their medication because they're, quote, not acting like everyone else. When I told my conservative parents, like, hey, we already have a kid in the family who's officially diagnosed ADHD. I think I have ADHD too. They're like, but don't get on medication. I'm like, why? And they're like, you should just be like David Goggins, no medication. David Goggins, first of all, is miserable. So absolutely not. And two, this mentality, this whole like natural is better. And this is why if you watch my last podcast about autistic girls suffering the most because of anti-surgery content, this is what I mean. Anti-surgery content is anti-medication content. You would be so much better if you didn't have to take those pills. It's so much better to do it the natural way. You don't need that nose job. You should be natural. Fuck you. With peace and love. Fuck you with peace and love. Don't fucking tell me what to do. Because you putting that agenda on me, that judgment on me, is life or death for some of us. Fuck you. I'm so annoyed with all of you for not understanding that at the end of the day, telling people to embrace their natural self when they are being discriminated against, bullied, literally not picked for jobs because of how they look or their name sounds, while understanding that we have to dismantle systems and we have to deconstruct. I get it. But you are talking about people paying their bills or not paying their bills. Are you going to pay their fucking bills? And then on top of that, this whole like you can fight it naturally thing, you can fucking fight your cancer naturally then, bitch, because I'm not going to do it. Okay? I'm sick of all of you. I'm sick of Jank. I'm sick of everybody. All these old people who are like, we did it without medication. Did you though? Did you though? Because I believe, if I recall correctly, there's a reason there's a meme of dads yelling and beating their children for not doing math correctly. And I don't think it's because you didn't have medication. Well, actually, I do think it's because you didn't have medication. Maybe if you had your medications, you wouldn't beat all of us for not doing math correctly. Like, why are we sitting here and not contending with the fact that we literally grew up with dads who in the future got memed for beating their children because they could not do math? What do you think that's about? Grow up, dudes. Okay, 2 more seconds of this and we're over it.
Of people.
Yeah, so it's a fair question because you're misinterpreting what I mean by so what, but not on purpose. It's a miscommunication. So when I say so what, I don't mean, oh, it's no big deal, or that we shouldn't fight him as the head of HHS. I'm against him being the head of HHS. I mean, so what is in, so what? Then let's fight him on those things, right? So I wish he was the head of HUD, and then I would support him. He is great. He wants to ban private equity from buying residential homes. Great. That's a great policy, right? But as the head of HHS, I massively disagree with him. And I think that getting rid of vaccines is a very problematic and not a culture war issue. It's very real. That affects people's actual lives. And when vaccines are blocked, there was a story out of Pakistan. They thought it was like an American trick. And then they blocked the polio vaccine and polio spread. And they were like, no, sorry, come back, right? So that's what I mean by so what. So what? Let's fight him on it. Like there's no, see, that's partly what's wrong here, which is that we're thinking of them, us. And so if they're in the them, then we hate everything about them, right? And what I'm saying is, no, we don't have to hate everything about them. All we have to say is, so I don't agree with Bobby Kennedy.
See, he's so old, bro. He's literally so old. He's just so in this particular bubble. And I get it. We've all been there. Neighbor to neighbor. Yes. I think what Cenk is saying should apply to our neighbors, not our politicians and not political influencers. Yes, our neighbors. That's different. Like loving your neighbor is beautiful. Meeting your neighbor where they're at is beautiful. I don't think we should be treating our neighbors the way we treat political streamers. Okay? That's the mistake. We shouldn't be treating our neighbors like political streamers, but we should be treating political streamers like political streamers. So yes, be kind to your neighbor. Be compassionate to your neighbor. Love your neighbor. Show compassion to your neighbor. We don't have to agree on everything. I love you. We'll show dignity to each other. We'll protect each other's homes. We'll watch for each other's kids. We'll, notice if anyone's acting funny around your house. We've got you. But not when it comes to political leaders, not when it comes to influencers, not when it comes to Andrew Tate, not when it comes to Patrick Bet-David, not when it comes to any of these fucking losers. No. Because you are influencing millions of people to go home and be cruel to their neighbors. Because that's what Republican policy gets you. It gets you feeling justified in treating your neighbors badly. So online discourse might feel intense, but because we're talking about life and death for a lot of people right now, it's not funny and it's not a joke. And right now there's one group that's pushing out policy that's going to hurt millions of people, both Republican and liberal. That's why I do feel bad for the Republican parents who voted for Trump and then they lost their funding. I don't think they genuinely, like all humans do, think it's going to impact them. That's the flaw in all of us. We all think we're exceptional. Do you know, as a teenager, I literally thought I was exceptional. Like when I was a kid and I was reading Twilight or name kid series here, I used to think I was the girl. And then I grew up and you realize you're not the exception, Bella. Where you been? You know what I'm saying? Like you've been in delusion, girl. You're not Bella Swan, girls. You are going to be neglected. They will not see you. You have to do it yourself. Like no one's coming to save you. No skin of a killer Edward is going to come get you. Okay. So it's this audacity of all of us thinking we're the exception. We're not the ones who are going to get an STI. We're not the ones who are going to get pregnant without planning. We're not the ones who are going to file for bankruptcy. We're not the ones who are going to get hit by a bus today. We're not the ones they're going to come for. We're not the ones they're going to deport. We're not the ones. Joke's on you. You're not the exception. They're coming for you, boo. Be as cautious as necessary. Be wise in your suffering. Do not give in to paranoia or delusion. Do not become paranoid. This is my message to you. Sink it into your skin, girls, like the lotion you put on this morning. Do not become paranoid. Be smart, cautious, wise, and calm. Do not become paranoid. Do not become a conspiracy theorist. Do not come to bad conclusions based off bad data. Do not let them make you feel crazy. Meditate, take deep breaths, and remind yourself you are living history. Everyone who's come before you has dealt with worse or similar. You can get through this, and one day we'll be in the 3 steps forward. So even though we're in the 2 steps back right now, I feel you. It's stressful, but you need to wait around for the 3 steps forward because it's going to be fabulous. Whether it comes in 50 years or whenever it comes, it's coming. It always does. And then somebody else will deal with the 2 steps back. And that's the burden of being a person in the universe. So every time you make a new baby, please prepare for that baby to experience 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. Because no one gets to live an existence where they don't. All of us from day one have felt the feeling of 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. Okay? Okay, this is where I'm at right now. That's what I wanted to do with the stream on today. I think I'm going to leave you unless anyone has any last questions or comments. Thank you for being here. Thank you for liking the stream. Thank you for sharing it on your favorite Reddit posts. Let's build this community. Let's send out that message of remembering that politics is about power and playing games. So make sure you know which one you're playing. That's all this is at the end of the day. Make sure you know which one you're playing. And like I said before, I hope that Jank gets off that crashing boat. Because, girl, it's already sunk. Now, maybe tomorrow, maybe this week, who knows? We should check in and see where he is 3 months later. Because this was 3 months ago. Shout out to Francesca, who's my new favorite person. How do you say her name? How do you say this name, guys? I don't get it. Bitch. I'm not good. Words, guys, words. Let me send you her link for her video. Let me send this to you. It's called, Bituation Room. I don't like it. Bituation Room, like the Situation Room, but Bituation Room. I don't know if I like it. It feels internalized misogyny. Because, like, can we really reclaim the word bitch in this climate of misogyny? Did we really need to reclaim the word bitch? I don't know. But that's my only judgment of her so far. Otherwise, I like her. She's really great. I don't know. The Bituation Room. The Bituation Room? Do we like it? Do we hate it? I don't know. Not my business. Love to see her. Excited to see more content from her. Check her out. You know. All right, girls. I will see you again tomorrow. Thank you for being here. We'll play some Devin Doe on the way out. Like the stream before you leave. And go watch my latest video on Love is Blind. All right. Bye.
I'm annoying
When I'm happy,
I feel
gleeful when you touch me.
I don't wanna
See that side.
I just wanna hide
My face in your chest for the rest of my life.
is a mystery, one that I don't really need. I'd rather have the feeling of knowing, the act of controlling these strings pulling me. But I can't help myself. There's no stopping me. When is enough enough? It's getting harder to breathe. I'm not as tough as you think. I'm just good at pretending. Except when I'm with you, you see right through. When it feels good, I feel crazy, like it's a big lie and I'm just waiting for it to become exhausting. Self-fulfilling prophecy. I know life, yeah, it's a process. Sometimes waiting is a part of progress, but I'm slowly losing patience, oscillating between passion and indifference. And I can't help myself. There's no stopping me. When it's enough enough, it's getting harder to breathe. I'm not as tough as you think. except when I